a young man, his expression one of confusion, sat up in bed. He blinked, his gaze settling on something peculiar. A door, seemingly suspended in midair, hung before him. It was unsettling, defying the laws of physics. He questioned the reality of what he was seeing, a doubt creeping into his mind. Was this a dream? Driven by curiosity, he cautiously approached the floating door, his hand reaching for the handle. With a click, the door opened, revealing a darkness beyond. He hesitated, a sense of unease washing over him. He stepped through, the door swinging shut behind him with a resounding thud. He found himself in a dark, unfamiliar place, his heart pounding in his chest. He called out, his voice echoing in the emptiness. He moved forward, his steps cautious. Suddenly, a sound, a crunching noise, made him freeze. The crunching sound grew louder, more frequent. He realized with horror what it was. A monstrous creature emerged from the shadows, its skeletal form horrifying. It lunged. He screamed, fear gripping him as the creature advanced. He was trapped. He fled, the creature hot on his heels. He had to escape. He managed to escape, leaving the creature behind. He was safe for now. Exhausted and shaken, he collapsed. A voice echoed in his mind, revealing a startling truth. He was not alone. Another presence was there, watching him. A chilling realization dawned. He had been found. Panic seized him, but a voice, calm yet urgent, cut through the terror. Trapped in another world, the young man was being guided telepathically. Following the instructions, he located a peculiar statue within his bag. A wave of unease washed over him as he recognized its ominous nature. He had unknowingly been targeted by a dark ritual, a curse intended to steal his soul. Yet against all odds, he survived. The memories of the body's original owner flooded back. He was not in his own body. He had taken over the life of a middle schooler named Shinyi. The previous inhabitant's soul had been destroyed by the curse, leaving the vessel open for possession. A surge of dark energy consumed him. In that moment of transition, his own soul had crossed dimensions, arriving in this strange new world. The failed curse had inadvertently granted him unimaginable power, drawn from the souls trapped within the statue. With newfound resolve, he commanded the door to reappear, ready to face whatever awaited him. The statue crumbled to dust, its power transferred. He now possessed the ability to summon the door at will. He watched, mesmerized, as the gateway to another world shimmered into existence before him. Because of his politeness when he first passed through, he had been granted a title, Polite Person. This title offered a passive bonus. A warning echoed in his mind. Those who had used the cursed statue would return, seeking revenge. He was not safe. The world he found himself in was called the Nightmare Realm, a place as terrifying as its name suggested. He was trapped but not alone. The original owner's voice, though faint, offered a glimmer of hope and a promise of future reward. Despite the danger, he had a purpose. He needed to find the original owner's enemies and understand why they wanted him dead. He decided to equip his new title and bravely face the terrifying skeleton guarding the next door, hoping to find a new title and a way to defend himself. He stood before a dark doorway, the air heavy with an unspoken tension. That monstrous skeleton had seemed insurmountable, a terrifying end. But a thought sparked within him. What if communication, the cornerstone of humanity, could bridge this seemingly impossible gap? After all, a skeleton is merely a dead person, still technically human. With his newly acquired Polite Person title, perhaps negotiation was possible, a way to enlist an unlikely ally against the unknown forces hunting him. He stepped into the darkness, the colossal skeletal figure looming before him. Its empty sockets seemed to glow with an eerie, malevolent light. Could he really negotiate with this thing? The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of his desperate situation. A young man, Shunyi, stood bathed in an ethereal light, dark, swirling energies coalescing around him. His eyes burned with an inner power, a storm brewing within. He introduced himself politely to a monstrous, three-eyed skull, its glowing green eyes fixed on him. The creature seemed to respond to his words. The creature, a grotesque, many-limbed horror, apologized for interrupting his meal earlier. Its words were surprisingly formal. It expressed a desire for friendship, a bizarre proposition given its appearance. Shinyi reacted with understandable alarm. The creature attacked, its limbs lashing out with surprising speed and force. The impact shattered the floor. Shinyi, despite the sudden assault, calmly explained that he only wanted a brief conversation. He noted that his title seemed to be working, a cryptic comment hinting at a larger context. The creature's attack sent him sprawling across the room, a sharp pain shooting through his body. He mused about the poor quality of the titles he'd been receiving, a seemingly mundane thought in the midst of a supernatural encounter. He realized the door's destruction would cause it to vanish, a crucial piece of information in his current predicament. With a surge of determination, he vowed to overcome this challenge, drawing on his past life as a top-tier salesman. He resolved to close this deal, a metaphor for his confrontation with the creature. The creature's skull shattered, its form disintegrating into dust. Its body followed suit, collapsing into fragments. He found himself in a corridor, the creature's demise seemingly complete. He was exhausted but resolute. He was approached by another being who offered a way to travel between worlds, but only through conversation. The monstrous skeletal figure loomed, its glowing green eyes fixed on Shun Yi. A challenge hung in the air, unspoken but palpable. He watched, a flicker of something akin to amusement in his gaze, as the creature prepared to strike. A voice, sharp and insightful, cut through the tension. "I noticed you're injured. When you were chomping down on people, new bone was slowly growing from the break in your left arm." Shun Yi, ever the pragmatist, countered with a grin. "I can't let you eat me, but our world has tons of stuff that's great for your bones." He held up his phone, displaying an advertisement for calcium tablets. The offer was clear: friendship in exchange for nutritional support. The creature considered this unusual proposition, its gaze shifting from the phone to Shun Ye's face. It spoke again, its voice echoing with a strange mix of weariness and curiosity. "Though in your case, taking a bullet probably wouldn't be an issue, right?" Shun Ye's expression turned serious. He knew this was a dangerous game, but he was willing to play. He tried another approach, a surge of energy emanating from him. It wasn't working as planned. The energy pulsed, a desperate attempt to find a solution. His frustration was evident. Suddenly, a contract materialized, a burst of purple energy forming the ancient text. He had found a way. The details of the contract were astonishing. The creature's identity was revealed: Mictlanta Cutley, a defeated lord of the underworld. The contract's terms were simple: an equal exchange. Shun Ye's help in regaining strength for the creature's own. The creature's immense power, once feared, was now diminished. It needed Shun Ye's assistance. A clause ensured fairness. If either party was dissatisfied, the contract could be terminated at any time. Shun Yi, with a thoughtful expression, prepared to sign, his finger hovering over the mystical contract. The name Shun Yi pulsed with an ethereal light, the words themselves seeming to writhe with power. A hand reached out, tracing the luminescence, a silent acknowledgement of the weight of the title. He gestured, a swirl of blue energy coalescing around him, a tangible manifestation of his power. The contract was almost complete. The being's eyes, twin embers of malevolent green, burned through the swirling energy, a silent observer of the ritual. Its power was immense, even in its weakened state. The energy subsided, leaving him bathed in a faint blue glow. A satisfied smirk played on his lips. He'd done it. He was a big deal now. Instructions were given: rest, recuperate, avoid stress. The city sprawled outside, a world he was now uniquely positioned to influence. He offered his thanks, a genuine expression of gratitude, to his family. Their relief was palpable. The young man reflected on his past life, a stark contrast to the warmth he now felt. He was no longer alone. A knock at the door shattered the quiet. Two officers stood there, their purpose clear. They were there for him. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and monstrous figures. His very being pulsed with power, a stark contrast to the darkness that threatened to consume him. The officer's words were laced with a weary acceptance. Shun Ye's recovery, he implied, was a fortunate anomaly in a world where such events were commonplace. But Shun Yi vehemently disagreed. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that this was far from over. The image was a horrifying tableau. A young man, his life force draining away, consumed by a dark, ethereal entity. Death's icy grip was palpable. He had been killed, a victim of a curse, a sacrifice to a monstrous being. The weight of this revelation settled heavily on him. The officer, despite his empathy, had more to share. There was something he needed to tell him, something that would likely unsettle him further. He explained that the hospital would soon be abandoned, a precaution to prevent further incidents. The implication was clear: the threat was not over. Shun Yi expressed his gratitude, but his worry remained. He sensed he was being targeted, a feeling amplified by the officer's young age and rank. The officer reassured him, pointing out the unlikelihood of someone holding a grudge against a middle schooler with a simple social circle. Their duties called them away, leaving Shun Yi alone with his unease. The brief interaction offered little comfort. The curse's power was immense. Even the police and government were wary, keeping their distance from the source of the supernatural threat. Shun Ye's status as a normal middle schooler made the situation even more perplexing. Why would anyone target him with such a powerful curse? The sergeant, surprised to see him again, questioned his return. He handed Shun Yi his card, a small gesture of support in the face of overwhelming mystery. The sergeant's expression was one of quiet contemplation, a hint of concern etched on his face as he turned away. Shun Yi, still recovering, clutched a worn ID card. A faint click echoed the quiet resignation in his eyes. He questioned the reliability of the police, a doubt fueled by the seemingly insurmountable nature of his predicament. The officer, however, seemed to be operating outside the usual bureaucratic inertia. His actions suggested a deeper understanding of the situation. His resolve hardened. The news of his survival had spread, and he knew the pursuit would intensify. A chilling thought struck him. Were his family now in danger? He slammed his fist into a wall, the need for strength overwhelming him. With a roar, he resolved to become stronger, immediately. He burst through a door, leaving destruction in his wake. He paused, a wry smile playing on his lips as he surveyed the scene. He called out to his pursuer, a skeletal figure of immense power. The skeletal figure emerged from the shadows, its presence menacing. The devourer of corpses had arrived, seeking what it desired. Shinyi was offered a strange tonic, a proposition he found unsettling. A swirling green energy pulsed, emanating from the mysterious tonic. The skeletal figure desired the tonic in Shun Ye's possession. It was revealed that the tonic was a relic, a low-tier nightmare crystal, offered in exchange. An ancient scroll unfurled, its text illuminating the brutal reality of a nightmare realm where all knowledge and civilization served only the endless pursuit of war. Shinyi, eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and excitement, stared at the glowing green crystal in his hand. The offer was too tempting to refuse. With a sharp crack, the crystal shattered, unleashing a torrent of emerald energy that enveloped him. The energy coalesced, forming ethereal green runes that pulsed with arcane power. He had learned a new technique. The newly acquired skill, Moonlit Deerwalk, promised unparalleled agility, allowing for evasive maneuvers and swift movements. He marveled at his newfound ability, a single tonic traded for an elven movement technique that would prove invaluable in his fight for survival. He practiced in secret, the urgency of his situation demanding mastery of his new skill. The contract's secrecy weighed heavily on his mind. Shinyi checked his physical attributes, realizing he needed more agility points to fully utilize the evasion technique. The process felt strangely like a video game. A figure loomed outside his window, silhouetted against the city lights. He was not alone. The shadowy figure descended, a chilling voice promising to reveal what Shunyi was truly made of. A title card, promising a world of limitless possibilities, introduced the story. Shinyi, in a hospital gown, found himself in a desperate struggle, narrowly avoiding a fatal blow. He rolled away, the attacker's weapon whistling past where he'd been moments before. Shinyi, now in a sleeveless shirt and pants, recognized his attacker as an assassin, the danger palpable. He was already being targeted. The attack was swift and unexpected. Shinyi, despite the danger, maintained a calm demeanor, activating a system. The system's response was underwhelming, its power level disappointingly low. He was outmatched, his opponent proving too agile, too slippery. The assassin fired, but Shunye's reflexes were sharp, dodging the bullet. He was pushed to his limits, his movement strained. Shunyi made a desperate gamble, consuming a status point to enhance his agility. A surge of energy coursed through him, granting him the ability to evade attacks. He activated his new ability, a green energy enveloping his feet. A door slammed shut, cutting off his escape route. The assassin, relentless, prepared to strike again. He lunged, his weapon aimed at Shunyi, determined to finish the fight. He stood in the darkness, a lone figure silhouetted against the faint light emanating from a passage behind him. A question hung in the air, unspoken but heavy with implication. Was this a secret passage? Moments later, the assassin appeared, a sinister figure in the dim light. He was confident, almost cocky, as he approached his prey. The assassin lunged, his weapon a blur of motion. But he was met with unexpected resistance. A monstrous skeletal figure emerged from the shadows, its glowing green eyes fixed on the assassin. The battle was joined. The sounds of the struggle echoed through the passage, crunching bones, desperate gasps. The assassin was clearly outmatched. The skeletal figure stood victorious, its form shimmering with an eerie green light. The assassin was nothing more than a pile of broken bones. Shunyi, bruised and battered, leaned against a wall, catching his breath. He was alive, but barely. He knew this was only a temporary reprieve. More assassins were coming. He needed to find a way to defend himself, and quickly. His thoughts raced, searching for a solution. He needed something, anything to turn the tide. Then, he remembered the contract. A sacrifice had been made, and a reward was due. 2 items materialized before him, a pale shadow crown and a silver war medal. Each held immense power, and each came with a price. He examined the crown, a wry smile playing on his lips. Even the skeletal figure had a pragmatic side. He donned the crown, its power surging through him. He felt a shift, a change, a transformation. A knock at the door. Another assassin? Or something else entirely? A young man, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. His power, raw and untamed, pulsed around him. He called out, relief evident in his voice, a simple greeting cutting through the tension. Another young man, startled, embraced him, tears of relief streaming down his face. His apologies tumbled out in a rush. He reassured his friend, brushing off the incident as mere bad luck. A young woman watched them, curiosity in her eyes. Back at home, the young man's mother greeted him, concern etched on her face. Her questions were sharp, her worry palpable. He explained his father's absence, revealing the existence of a powerful tonic. The implications hung heavy in the air. He admitted to having taken it, the effort involved in obtaining it clearly weighing on him. His friend's reaction was one of awe. The narrative shifted to the importance of upcoming high school exams, a stark contrast to the supernatural events. His mother consoled him, emphasizing the importance of the agility test as a backup plan. He felt the weight of his situation. He reflected on the physical demands of the test, a new challenge in the face of his recent ordeal. The young man felt hunted, his new abilities making him a target. The thought of school felt like a dangerous trap. His friend, observing his distress, suggested giving up on the exams. The weight of the decision was clear. His mother's hand reached out, offering comfort and support in a silent gesture of understanding. She embraced him, a silent promise of unwavering support. He found solace in her embrace. The weight of his worries momentarily lifted. He smiled, a newfound determination in his eyes. With his mother's support, he would face whatever came next. He stared out the window, a pensive expression settling on his face. The thought of giving up on the exams crossed his mind, a tempting escape from the pressure. But his mother's approval was a sure thing if he did. The decision weighed heavily on him. He knew he should attend the review sessions, but a wave of exhaustion and memories threatened to overwhelm him. His family's influence was undeniable, yet their strained relationship with his grandfather complicated matters. They had a lot of power, but it wasn't easily accessible. The expensive tonic they'd obtained spoke volumes about the lengths they'd gone to. They must have humbled themselves before his grandfather to secure it. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Their son, Shunyi, was already gone. This only strengthened his resolve to honor their efforts. He sat alone, the weight of his responsibilities pressing down. He was starving, but the thought of food was secondary to the larger task at hand. The next day dawned, bringing with it the promise of a new beginning and the challenges that lay ahead. He reflected on the school's curriculum, finding it strangely different from what he expected. The thought of assassins and the need for protection crossed his mind. A classmate informed him that Zhao Yibing was looking for him in the hallway. He was surprised, wondering what she wanted. He found her there, her presence unexpected. She admitted she had been looking for him. He remembered her as Shun Ye's friend, a constant source of encouragement for his studies. She had heard he was back to prepare for the exams. She offered her congratulations, her words laced with a hint of something more. She simply wanted to say something. She looked at him, her expression soft yet firm. She urged him not to seek her out anymore. Meanwhile, another classmate gossiped about the situation, adding fuel to the already tense atmosphere. He explained that they were from different worlds, their paths diverging. They agreed to remain friends, despite the distance. She reflected on their past interactions, acknowledging his consistent pursuit while she never sought him out. She asked for peace, wanting to focus on her studies. The scene unfolded amidst the chaotic energy of a high school hallway. A girl with fiery orange hair, clearly agitated, confronted a young man with dark blue hair. Her words, sharp and accusatory, cut through the background noise. Shunyi had publicly embarrassed Bing, his friend, by missing an important exam, and her disappointment was palpable. Shunyi's friend, Bing, was shown in a close-up, tears streaming down her face. The weight of his actions and the shattering of their friendship was evident in her silent grief. He stood defiant, accepting the criticism. The unspoken truth hung heavy in the air. This was a classic case of social inequality, and he was choosing to fight fire with fire. Shunyi, his voice firm despite the turmoil within, articulated his feelings. He didn't want her gifts. He felt she was trying to control him, and he deserved better. He rejected any notion of reconciliation, making it clear that their friendship was over. The finality of his words hung between them, a stark contrast to the unspoken hope that had lingered moments before. A dramatic title card, promising a tale of boundless worlds and a guardian at their heart. The scene shifts to a classroom, where a young woman confronts Shunyi, her voice laced with anger and frustration. He smirks, seemingly unfazed by her outburst, his expression a mixture of arrogance and indifference. The surrounding students whisper amongst themselves, their opinions of Shun Ye's actions clearly divided. A muscular man appears, his face grim, ready to intervene in the unfolding drama. He confronts Shun Yi, his words sharp and demanding, leaving little room for argument. Shun Yi sighs, admitting his wrongdoing and offering a reluctant apology. He walks away, leaving the young woman alone with her mixed emotions. A muscular man approaches, his intentions unclear, adding another layer of tension to the situation. The young woman, overwhelmed by her own words and actions, expresses regret and confusion. The muscular man, frustrated by the turn of events, confronts Shun Yi, ready for confrontation. A sudden, intense physical altercation erupts between the two, a flurry of fists in motion. The fight continues, with Shun Yi displaying unexpected agility and strength. Bystanders watch in shock as Shun Yi delivers a powerful blow, knocking his opponent to the ground. Shun Yi stands victorious, his movements now imbued with an unnatural speed and power, leaving everyone stunned. The impact of Shun Ye's kick sent shockwaves through the crowd. Sun Ming, his opponent, hadn't even reacted. A murmur rippled through the onlookers, their hushed whispers questioning the sudden display of power. The mock exams were about to begin, yet all eyes remained fixed on Shunyi, the unexpected source of this commotion. Despite the stunned silence, a voice cut through the air, a challenge issued. This wasn't over. He was called away from the scene, a friend's casual greeting interrupting his thoughts. The conversation turned to a new comic book shop, a distraction from the lingering tension. He walked down a long corridor, the silence amplifying the unease he felt. He dashed into a restroom, seeking refuge from an unseen pursuer. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared, a sinister presence filling the small space. The figure stood silently, its menacing presence palpable. The pursuer was gone, leaving only questions in their wake. Elsewhere, a blonde elf emerged, a surge of energy crackling around them. They recognized the assassin's pistol, a grim reminder of the danger. The elf checked the weapon, a newfound sense of preparedness settling over them. With a dismissive wave, Shunyi declared it was time to go, and unleashed a surge of energy, a blue torrent crackling around him. A voice, ethereal and powerful, called out to him. An elf, appearing from the energy, responded, stating that they lacked the strength to help further, but offered a token. He received the token, a surge of energy coursing through him as he looked at it, confused. It was a human token. The elf's gift dispersed, leaving behind only faint traces of blue energy. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. His power, raw and untamed, pulsed around him. A blonde elf, cradling a dagger, gazed at it with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. The mysterious voice that had given it to him remained a puzzle. Suddenly, 3 figures emerged from the bushes, startling the elf. The question hung in the air: who were these intruders? He recognized one of them, Fern. Relief washed over him, quickly replaced by the terse greeting of a comrade, long overdue. Fern explained his delay, a minor setback that almost jeopardized their mission. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. He revealed a startling truth. The 3 figures, including himself, were not elves, but undead beings wearing a crown that masked their true nature. Their eagerness to strike was palpable. The thrill of the impending confrontation fueled their anticipation. One of the undead, however, voiced his concern about revealing their true identities. The risk was immense. He apologized, his apprehension evident. The others, however, were already moving forward, their determination unshaken. They set off towards the elf village, the urgency of their mission driving them forward. Fern's tardiness had already cost them valuable time. Their speed was remarkable, even for the undead. The strain was evident on the faces of the pursuing figures. They arrived at the village, but entry required the chief's permission. A simple task, but one that could still present unforeseen challenges. One of the undead reflected on the near miss, the tension palpable. The assassination was imminent, and the stakes were high. Fern, sweating profusely, prepared for the final confrontation. The weight of the mission rested heavily on his shoulders. His companions watched him, a mixture of apprehension and determination in their eyes. The question hung in the air: would he back out? A glint of steel flashed in the dim light. The elf, eyes alight with a chilling determination, declared that backing down was not an option. Their blade yearned for blood. The elf's companions, however, were less enthusiastic. One voiced their apprehension, noting the inherent danger of assassinating the elf chief within their own stronghold. The group proceeded cautiously up a stone staircase, their cloaks blending with the shadows of the ancient forest. The path led towards the elf chief's dwelling. They arrived at a grand, imposing structure. The elf was informed that the chief was expecting them and was aware of their arrival. One of the elves gestured towards the entrance, instructing the assassin to proceed while the others would wait. The assassin, however, harbored doubts. They muttered about the precariousness of their situation, caught in a conflict between undead and elves. He entered a dimly lit passage, the only light source of beam cutting through the darkness ahead. The assassin continued deeper into the structure, the weight of his mission pressing down on him. He found himself in a large chamber where a powerful figure awaited. The elf chief's imposing presence filled the space. The chief, however, seemed unfazed by the assassin's arrival, calmly noting the presence of soldiers arriving from the front lines. A sudden surge of power emanated from the elf. They realized their unique ability to analyze titles, revealing the chief's many impressive titles. The titles revealed were staggering: Spirit of the Myriad Forests, Heir to the Ancient Tree Throne, Nature's Mighty Lord, Grandmaster of Arcane Arts, Guardian of the Nightmare Realm, and one of the 5 world heads. The elf, overwhelmed by the sheer power and prestige of the chief, felt a wave of doubt and fear. The elf reflected on their naivete, realizing that even the undead wouldn't dare face such a formidable opponent. Their mission seemed impossible. The chilling words, "perfect, just perfect, skeleton fern, I'll remember this," echoed in the air, a stark contrast to the celebratory announcement below. A New Year's update notice promised at least 1 new chapter per day, a stark contrast to the grim satisfaction in the previous statement. A spectral figure, cloaked in shadow, materialized within a temple. Its eyes glowed with an eerie green light. The temple's aged stones seemed to whisper forgotten tales as the figure surveyed its surroundings. Meanwhile, in a bustling tavern, a celebration was underway. A blonde-haired man, seemingly oblivious to the looming threat, was enjoying the festivities. Two figures, cloaked in shadow, watched the blonde man from the darkness. Their plan was set in motion. One of them spoke, outlining a diversion to allow their target to escape the impending danger. The blonde man, unaware of the plot, was invited to dance by an elf. He accepted, a hint of nervousness in his eyes. They gracefully moved across the floor, the music washing over them. But the tension remained palpable. As the dance continued, the elf's eyes flickered with concern. She sensed something was amiss. Her thoughts raced, desperately searching for a solution. She needed a plan. Meanwhile, the blonde man's brother, haunted by the horrors of war, sat quietly, lost in his own thoughts. The elf, noticing his quiet demeanor, offered a magic trick as an apology for the unexpected dance. He agreed, a glimmer of curiosity in his eyes. The stakes were high. Failure meant losing a valuable bracelet. The blonde man prepared for his act, his confidence growing with each passing moment. He announced his intention to perform a transformation magic trick, a feat never before seen. The elf and others watched with bated breath, eager to witness the spectacle. Concern etched itself onto the faces of the three elves. What was Fern up to? One of them voiced their astonishment at Fern's ability to transform into a human, highlighting the cleverness of the disguise. Fern's transformation completed, the other elves reacted with awe and excitement. Fern explained that his three brothers possessed the same ability, but with a deadly consequence if their crowns were removed. Suddenly, a horde of undead creatures emerged, their glowing red eyes menacing. A red alert was immediately sounded among the elves, their expressions shifting to alarm. Fern assured them he would return after his brothers completed their transformations, urging them to remain vigilant. He bid farewell to Lainey before disappearing. The elves reacted with shock and confusion to his sudden vanishing act. Lainey, ever vigilant, proposed a plan to capture the three undead first, cautioning about their potential tricks. One of the elves was ensnared by the undead, their dark magic binding them. A powerful figure, seemingly an elf leader, appeared, his arrival marked by a surge of magical energy. The leader noted the misunderstanding, implying the presence of spies. He revealed that the village had been infiltrated and that they now had the means to identify and counter the threat. The scene shifts to Lainey, alone and forlorn, resigned to Fern's absence. A skeletal figure, its eyes glowing ominously, loomed over the young man. "You are still alive?" it rasped, the question hanging heavy in the air. He glared back, defiance flickering in his eyes. "So you can speak human language? You freakish jerk. You gave me that pale shadow crown on purpose, trying to send me to my death, didn't you?" The young man, demonstrating his sincerity, offered a powerful necromantic spell as a token of apology. He believed it was a fair exchange. He explained that he'd given the young man the crown because humans and elves were allies, and this was his only chance of survival. Otherwise, death would have been his fate. A surge of purple energy crackled around him as he received the crystal. The narration box explained its power, innate abilities, ready to be inherited. He decided to give the crystal to the young man, reasoning that he was already wounded and that they wouldn't finish him off yet. He chuckled, a hint of mischief in his tone. The young man, despite his gratitude, was wary. He knew there would be no next time. Meanwhile, a skeletal figure sat upon a throne, radiating dark energy. The young man, back in action, braced himself for a choice. The skeletal figure, the defeated lord of the underworld, offered a chilling ultimatum: choose. The young man was presented with two ancient innate abilities, Sacred Bone Body and Murmurs of the Dark. He had to choose one. The descriptions of the abilities were detailed, highlighting their strengths and limitations. Sacred Bone Body offered temporary invincibility, while Murmurs of the Dark promised knowledge. He considered the options carefully. Necromantic resurrection was useless now, but information was key to survival. He knew who was trying to kill him. He made his choice, selecting the Murmurs of the Dark. The green energy pulsed, a sign of his decision. The faint green glow intensified, a tangible hum resonating from the crystal clutched in his hand. A wave of sensation washed over him, a chilling whisper from beyond the veil. He channeled the power, a surge of energy coursing through his veins. A question formed, a silent query to the newly awakened ability. The skeletal figure, eyes burning with an eerie green light, recounted the events leading to his current predicament. It was a tale of betrayal and a desperate gamble. The narrative shifted, revealing the original target of the attack, a powerful elf priestess. The implications hung heavy in the air. He reviewed the titles bestowed upon him, each one a testament to the power he now wielded. This was his only chance. He moved swiftly, leaving the others to their own concerns. The weight of his mission pressed upon him. A new title appeared, a potent ability with a significant drawback. The consequences were clear. He studied the limitations of his new power, understanding its potential and its risks. It might prove useful, He examined the bracelet, a gift from Laney, its green glow promising enhanced spiritual power. A small victory in a desperate situation. He surveyed his new acquisitions, a grim satisfaction settling over him. The hunt would continue. A stark warning filled the screen, a prelude to the events about to unfold. The image shifted, revealing a young man, his form shrouded in darkness, a palpable sense of power emanating from him. The scene transitioned to a bustling athletic field, the air alive with anticipation. A test of agility was about to begin. Chun Hao-yu, the first competitor, launched into the test, his movements a blur of motion. Encouragement echoed from the sidelines. But his confidence proved misplaced. A sudden, unexpected attack left him incapacitated, a purple explosion marking his failure. Shen Yi, observing from the sidelines, felt a surge of satisfaction. He was next. He stepped onto the field, his demeanor calm and collected, a stark contrast to his predecessor's hubris. The command to begin echoed. With breathtaking speed, he navigated the course, his movements fluid and precise, leaving onlookers awestruck. He reflected on his skills, a quiet confidence in his abilities. His real-world experience made this a trivial task. Meanwhile, a group of examiners watched from afar, their expressions a mixture of surprise and intrigue. One of them commented on Shun Ye's impressive agility, noting his potential. Another voiced concern about the high standards for the psychic power test, recalling Shun Ye's average score in that area. Despite the high bar, hope remained that he would excel in the upcoming psychic power test. Shen Yi, having completed the agility portion flawlessly, received praise from his instructor. A lunch break was announced, giving everyone a chance to rest before the next phase of the test. He decided to wash up before rejoining his instructor in the classroom to continue studying. Shen Yi sat alone in a classroom, a wave of confusion washing over him as he grappled with the stark differences between his previous world and this new reality. The sheer volume of unfamiliar knowledge felt overwhelming, a headache forming behind his eyes. Suddenly, a commotion erupted. A student was thrown across the room, landing hard against the desk. The chaos was immediate and intense. Zhao Yibing, his face grim, stood defiantly, his declaration echoing the tension in the room. This was far from over. A teacher, his authority challenged, addressed Shun Yi, highlighting the significant increase in his strength since his absence from school. The teacher's words hinted at a hidden power. He felt a surge of power, a tidal activating within him, solidifying his position in this strange new world. The realization settled. He was one of us. His classmates, initially hostile, now offered a hesitant truce, acknowledging their shared predicament. They were all on the same side, against a common enemy. He reflected on the situation, acknowledging the relative safety of their current conflict. It was a school fight, not a life-or-death struggle. But the reprieve was temporary. Shen Yi allocated his newly acquired stat points to strength, understanding the limited nature of his new ability. He was ready. He stood firm, refusing to run, preparing to face his opponents head-on. His resolve was unwavering. With a battle cry, he launched a powerful attack, his enhanced strength evident in the force of his blow. The fight had begun. His opponent, surprised by the sudden power surge, recoiled in shock. The tables had turned. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and monstrous figures. The title, barely visible, hinted at a world beyond comprehension. The page detailed the fundamental strengths and agility of an average adult, setting the stage for the extraordinary feats to come. A fierce clash erupted, a flurry of fists and a grunt of exertion. The fight was clearly underway. The narration box explained that true strength went beyond mere muscle, encompassing resilience, flexibility, and internal power. This was a world where the body was more than the sum of its parts. He stood, a burning aura surrounding him, his strength amplified beyond normal limits. The entrance exams loomed, but he was ready. The young man was surrounded. A group of bullies, fueled by jealousy, were plotting to ruin his life. One of the bullies, regretting their actions, pleaded for forgiveness. The young man's power was clearly intimidating. The narrator highlighted the gravity of the situation, humiliation, assault, and the attempted destruction of his future. With a burst of speed, he retaliated against his tormentors. The scene blurred into a whirlwind of motion. Screams echoed as he unleashed his fury, the impact of his blows evident in the stylized lettering. A teacher, rushing into the scene, demanded to know what was happening. The chaos was undeniable. The young man, bruised but victorious, explained that he had been bullied. The teacher looked on, stunned. The teacher, initially shocked by the extent of the injuries, questioned the young man's claim of being bullied. The teacher realized she had misjudged the situation, the young man's strength far exceeding her expectations. News of the young man's overwhelming victory spread, leaving his classmates in awe and regret. He and a female classmate shared a moment of reflection, wondering how things might have turned out differently if she had been more supportive. Shen Yi lay on a stretcher, his life irrevocably altered. The weight of his actions settled heavily. His future, once bright, now lay in ruins. Meanwhile, a young woman, her face a mixture of concern and self-recrimination, watched him being carried away. She berated herself for not seeing his true desperation sooner. His gaze, however, lingered on her, a silent accusation that pierced through her carefully constructed composure. The weight of his actions and her inaction hung heavy in the air. A hushed plea escaped her lips, a desperate attempt to silence the turmoil within her and the growing chaos around them. She desperately tried to stop the escalating situation. Bing Bing, her name echoing in her mind, moved through the bustling hallway, the weight of her guilt a heavy cloak. The incident had left its mark. She was acutely aware of the stares, the whispers, the judgment in the eyes of those around her. The consequences of Shun Ye's actions were far-reaching. Overcome with a mix of fear, regret, and sorrow, Bing Bing wept silently, the full impact of the events finally hitting her. The consequences were far greater than she had ever imagined. A police officer approached Shun Yi, his expression stern but not unkind. The aftermath of the fight was being dealt with, and Shun Yi would face the consequences. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows. The scene pulsed with otherworldly energy. In a starkly contrasting setting, two men reviewed a video, their expressions a mixture of shock and disbelief. Their hushed whispers turned to gasps as the video revealed something truly extraordinary. Shun Yi, the young man from the previous scene, was being questioned by police officers. He calmly explained his actions. The officers, though initially skeptical, were swayed by the irrefutable evidence he presented. He justified his actions, emphasizing the need to protect himself from imminent danger. Meanwhile, elsewhere, two figures discussed the implications of the video, their voices low and serious. Shun Yi met with a man, the conversation revealing the young man's involvement with a powerful organization. The city skyline loomed, a stark contrast to the intense personal drama unfolding. He contemplated his path, a sense of determination hardening his gaze. A powerful figure appeared, his presence radiating an aura of immense power. Shun Ye's abilities were assessed, revealing a strength far beyond expectations. The assessment results were astonishing, highlighting his potential. An invitation was extended, offering him a chance to join a prestigious organization. The conversation concluded, leaving the young man's future uncertain, yet full of possibilities. Shun Yi grinned, a self-assured glint in his eyes. 3 points in psychic power. That should be enough to handle whatever came next. Across the room, a man with long dark hair and sunglasses watched him, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. He exhaled a plume of smoke, his gaze unwavering. The man's eyes widened slightly as Shun Ye's psychic abilities manifested. The officers present were shocked. They had underestimated him. He focused his will, channeling his psychic energy. With a surge of power, he moved a nearby chair. The order came swiftly. Pack it up, they were leaving. The captain, clearly unnerved, looked on. Shun Yi breathed a sigh of relief. He had done it, at least for now, but he knew this was far from over. A vibrant, otherworldly light erupted, bathing a young man in its ethereal glow. Around him, shadowy figures writhed, their forms indistinct yet menacing. Two men watched the scene unfold, one of them commenting on the unusual spectacle. The other, more composed, suggested a private conversation. The pair moved to a quieter area, the click of a lighter punctuating the sudden silence. The older man, Qian Russian, inquired about the young man's life goals. The young man, Shun Yi, responded with surprising simplicity. Shun Ye's ambition was revealed, to be strong enough to protect himself and his family. A quiet determination filled his eyes. Qian Russian, amused, challenged him to an immediate physical confrontation. Shun Yi reacted instantly, his fist crackling with energy. The force of the blow was unexpected. Qian Russian found himself momentarily paralyzed. Qian Russian explained the technique Shun Yi had just used, a secret art of their organization, designed to immobilize opponents. He then demonstrated another technique, a defensive maneuver to deflect projectiles. Shun Yi, eager to learn, quickly mastered the new skill, his focus unwavering. The older man revealed that this was a secret technique, and that Shun Ye's talent warranted an invitation to a prestigious program. He explained the rigorous entrance exam, a test designed by the schools themselves. The conversation shifted to the origins of Shun Ye's exceptional abilities, hinting at a connection to powerful noble families. The implications of this connection were vast, suggesting a life far removed from the ordinary. The Hidden Dragon Project, a clandestine initiative designed to identify exceptional individuals, extended an offer to Shun Yi. They promised assistance in securing admission to prestigious academies, guaranteeing a place in a top-tier high school, even if he failed the entrance exams. Success, however, would bring full organizational support and career guidance. He considered the proposal, the weight of the words settling upon him. This was a world where strength reigned supreme, a harsh reality he now understood. Shun Ye's parents had struggled, resorting to begging and borrowing for even basic necessities. His grandfather's noble family, however, possessed resources that dwarfed such concerns. Now, He was ready to face the consequences of his actions, his strength placing him above the rules that governed ordinary people. He reflected on the constant emphasis in class on humanity's reliance on strength for survival. It was a lesson he was now putting into practice. Shen Yi accepted the invitation. His decision was met with approval. The representative noted his decisiveness and the potential he saw in him. However, since Shen Yi was a minor, his guardian's signature was required. The representative left to obtain the necessary paperwork, promising a swift return. Shen Yi's rapid rise to prominence had not gone unnoticed. Other organizations were likely to reach out soon, but he had already made his choice. His actions had been swift and decisive, a testament to his newfound power. A call came in from an unknown number. Intrigued, he answered, unaware of the implications. A young man, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood defiant amid swirling shadows. Dark tendrils reached out, clawing at him, but he remained resolute. Inside a brightly lit police station, 2 officers reviewed a photograph. One expressed a sense of unease. The officer explained that the photo depicted a suspicious individual seen near the hospital around the time of a recent incident. The other officer, scrutinizing the image, admitted he didn't recognize the man. The focus shifted back to the young man from the first panel. He was questioned about his activities on the day of the incident, specifically whether he carried anything unusual. He replied that he couldn't say anything about the statue, but that everyone else involved had died from its curse, except him. Meanwhile, another officer pondered the strangeness of the situation, noting that anyone asking questions about it was asking for trouble. He reflected on the unsettling feelings he'd experienced since the young man entered the station. The young man suddenly remembered something crucial. His backpack had been left unzipped that day. He realized he needed to be prepared to leave at a moment's notice. A female officer, observing his sudden alertness, wondered what he was about to do. He prepared himself, knowing that something was wrong and he needed to escape. A sudden, intense fear washed over him as the door almost opened. He decided to leave while the officer was on the phone. The officer on the phone was suddenly attacked. A swirling vortex of energy appeared. The young man witnessed the attack, realizing it was an assassination attempt targeting the officer, and that it involved a technique he'd heard about before. Shen Yi cursed under his breath, his eyes wide with disbelief as he realized the immediate danger. They were right outside the police station. The ensuing chaos was swift and brutal. A police officer, caught completely off guard, was thrown through a window by a sudden, violent force. An alarm blared, its harsh sound cutting through the pandemonium. The message was stark. An intruder had breached the station, and all non-combat personnel were ordered to find a safe location and stay hidden. Shen Yi's gaze fell upon the ocean, a sudden, desperate hope flickering within him. He found himself staring at a painting depicting a moonlit graveyard overlooking the ocean. A wave of confusion washed over him. He shouldn't be in the city. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. The scene pulsed with otherworldly energy. The narrative shifted to a figure in a vibrant, patterned robe, his face partially obscured. He spoke of revenge, his words heavy with grief and righteous anger. A man, his expression etched with shock and confusion, reacted to the unfolding events. The word boss echoed in the air, a silent question hanging between them. Suddenly, a young man with short, dark blue hair reappeared, his voice filled with disbelief and a hint of triumph. He had returned. He was shaken, his mind reeling from the experience. The unsettling feeling lingered, a haunting reminder of what had transpired. His thoughts turned to the missing Sergeant Luo, a growing unease settling in his gut. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. A supernatural ability had been activated, drawing him back to a specific location. He was compelled to answer a question. He turned, alertness sharpening his senses. A question hung in the air. Who was there? The voice, familiar yet unsettling, emanated from a nearby cabinet. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He opened the cabinet, revealing a grim scene. A hunter, killed by his own prey, had been meticulously disguised. The young man found himself face to face with the body of Sergeant Luo, bound and lifeless. The question hung heavy. Was this him? The confirmation was brutal. Sergeant Luo was dead, murdered by the man in the photograph. The scene shifted to the aftermath, the sergeant's hat lying on the floor, a chilling testament to the violence that had occurred. It all made a grim sort of sense. He pondered the curse of the Ghost King statue, its failure to claim him a mystery. The assassin's plans had been disrupted, but why? The city outside was in chaos, a strange anomaly having warped reality. It wasn't sorcery. It was something far more unsettling. A calamity had struck, a terrifying event that defied explanation. The young man looked on, a mixture of fear and determination in his eyes. A colossal, shadowy figure emerged from a swirling vortex, its presence casting a chilling pall over the city. Whispers of Jiangnan City's destruction echoed in the air, a stark reminder of the potential devastation these otherworldly beings could unleash. The official explanation, as simple calamity, was a gross understatement. The truth was far more terrifying. A police officer, his uniform torn and bloodied, stared in disbelief at the scene. The urgency in his voice was palpable. Time was running out. He was still in danger, the officer warned, and needed to act quickly. A long code was scribbled down, a key to safety. Shinyi, having just returned to his body, found himself facing a grim reality. The other party's soul had already departed, leaving him with a heavy burden. He reviewed the case file, the sheer scale of the tragedy sinking in. Even a seasoned sergeant could fall victim to such forces. A harsh truth dawned on him. In this world, weakness meant death. The question of revealing the killer's identity lingered, but he knew it was pointless. He knew the assassin might have accomplices at the station, and with his current strength, he was vulnerable. His only option was to follow Sergeant Luo's instructions and seek safety. He couldn't guarantee he could avenge Sergeant Luo, not with his current abilities. The weight of his task pressed heavily upon him. Despite his doubts, a fierce resolve hardened his gaze. He would avenge him, no matter the cost. He placed Sergeant Luo's hat gently on the ground, a silent promise to bring his killer to justice. A series of knocks echoed through the corridor. He was discovered. A new anomaly had been detected, and everyone was ordered to assemble for screening. A surge of dark energy erupted, tendrils of shadow reaching out like grasping claws. At its center stood Shinyi, a young man bathed in an ethereal glow, seemingly the source of the chaotic power. The officers, their faces etched with worry, received their orders. They were to ensure Shanye's safety, a task complicated by the recent events. One officer, his expression grim, reported that the body had been moved. The situation was rapidly deteriorating. Suspicion immediately fell upon Shanyi. Was he responsible for the chaos? He was being questioned, the weight of the accusations pressing down on him. Meanwhile, another officer expressed frustration at the incompetence of those who had failed to apprehend the culprit earlier. A citywide alert was issued. The hunt for Shinyi was on. A system-wide scan was initiated, demanding the immediate assembly of all personnel. Shinyi, alone, considered his options. He was the prime suspect. He contemplated hiding in the Nightmare Realm, a dangerous but potentially safe haven, until the situation calmed. But he knew he couldn't afford to wait. Justice needed to be served. He leaped from the window, determined to clear his name and expose the true culprits. He moved swiftly and silently through the building, his movements precise and efficient. He reached the main hall, ready to confront whatever awaited him. But he was not alone. A familiar figure emerged from the shadows, a police officer, his expression a mixture of surprise and suspicion. Shinyi, cramming for his exams, muttered about the extra math problems assigned by his teacher. His anxiety was palpable, a stark contrast to the danger that awaited him. A sudden blow sent a police officer sprawling. The force of the impact was evident, leaving a trail of motion blur in its wake. The question hung in the air. Who was responsible? With a surge of power, Shinyi shattered the door, the fragments exploding outward in a chaotic spray. The sheer force of the action was breathtaking. He breathed a sigh of relief. The door, unusually resilient, had adapted to his attack. Had it been a normal door, the consequences would have been far more severe. He lunged forward, his attack swift and deadly. The assassin, however, was ready, meeting the blow with a counterattack. The clash was fierce, a desperate struggle for survival. The officer, stunned by the display of power, could only stare in disbelief at the strange energy emanating from Shunye's attack. What was his power? He grunted, the effort taking its toll. The chase was far from over. The officer's threat echoed in his mind. I'll kill you. He dodged another blow, narrowly escaping death. The assassin's blade sliced through the air, a deadly whisper of impending doom. With a final determined effort, he finished the task. The assassin lay defeated, his threat neutralized. Shunye's triumph was short-lived, however, as the officer's words still rang in his ears. A young man, Shunyi, stood bathed in an ethereal light, dark figures swirling around him like shadows. The passcode verified, a high-tech scan initiated, searching for the body of Sergeant Luo Feichuan. Manager Qian, alerted to the severity of the situation, authorized immediate termination of the imposter. Shinyi, cornered, made a desperate dash for freedom, only to be confronted by his pursuer. He fought back fiercely, but his opponent proved too strong. A desperate struggle ensued. With a burst of energy, he unleashed a powerful attack, momentarily stunning his assailant. A man with long dark hair and sunglasses, Manager Qian, appeared, his words emphasizing the speed required to overcome any defense. Shinyi, breathless but alive, expressed his gratitude to Manager Qian for the timely rescue. The assassin, cloaked in darkness, stood silently, observing the scene. Meanwhile, a police officer pieced together the events leading to Sergeant Luo's death, suspecting a connection to a dangerous organization. He learned that Shinyi had been targeted by an assassin from the League of Assassins, a group known for taking online contracts. The officer questioned Shunye's intelligence, but also wondered why someone would go to such lengths to kill a middle schooler. The investigation continued, focusing on why Sergeant Luo hadn't used his special passcode. A metallic prosthetic hand, The key to the mystery lay in a display case. The officer reflected on Sergeant Luo's dedication, vowing to uncover the truth behind his death. Shen Yi, a young man with short, dark blue hair, sat listening intently. He had just been told he was now part of their group. His new contact, a man with long dark hair and sunglasses, offered a piece of advice, his words laced with a world weariness born of experience. Always be wary of those with ill intentions. He nodded solemnly, promising to remember the warning. The man then informed him that he had arranged a meeting with his parents. As they prepared to leave, the man explained that more specialized personnel would handle the aftermath of the recent anomaly. The area would soon be locked down. He recalled a previous case, a chilling reminder of the horrors they faced. The man's words hung heavy in the air. They were more terrifying than he could imagine. A phone call interrupted their departure. The man's face fell as he received an urgent request for a background check on someone named Luo Feichuan. He was cautioned against naivete, a stark reminder of the dangers inherent in their work. The young man was left to ponder the gravity of the situation and the potential consequences of their actions. A young man stood bathed in an ethereal light, dark energy swirling around him like a tempest. His eyes burned with an inner fire. He sat across from two older figures, their faces etched with concern. The discussion was serious. The weight of family legacy hung heavy in the air. The older man explained the young man's family history, a tale of power, loss, and a life lived in quiet obscurity. He was presented with a choice: embrace his heritage or forge his own path. The decision weighed heavily on him. He made his decision, a quiet resolve settling on his features. His parents, though concerned, respected his choice. He explained his decision to join the human martial arts group, a path less traveled, but one he felt drawn to. His parents, while hesitant, ultimately offered their support, their love for him unwavering. A flashback revealed his childhood, a time of innocent joy and carefree play with other children. The contrast between his past and present was stark. The weight of his decision settled upon him. He was welcomed into the group, a new chapter beginning in his life. His mother watched, a mix of pride and apprehension in her eyes. Meanwhile, a young woman sat alone, tapping away at her phone, a sense of anticipation in her demeanor. She watched the video of the recent events, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. Her plan was working perfectly. She continued to monitor the video's progress, confident in the outcome. Her actions would have far-reaching consequences. She reveled in her success, secure in her position. She was, and would remain, flawless. A notification arrived on her phone, a warning of legal action. The consequences of her actions were beginning to manifest. A young woman stared intently at her phone screen, her expression a mixture of disbelief and outrage. The words misinformation and impossible echoed in her mind, the gravity of the situation settling upon her. News of Shun Ye's success spread like wildfire. A celebratory banner announced his contract with the Human Martial Arts Group and his acceptance into top schools. She slumped to the floor, a wave of despair washing over her. The nearness of her goal, now snatched away, left her feeling defeated. The towering Human Martial Arts Group building stood tall against the skyline, a stark reminder of the battle that had just concluded. The police report confirmed the grim details. Many casualties, one capture. Shinny learned he'd earned merit points for his actions, a currency within the organization. He felt a pang of regret, however, for the life lost. A formal notice arrived, informing him of a special reward for his contributions. The government's recognition was official. He checked his phone, surprised to find he'd also received a reward. His thoughts drifted to the rumors surrounding the assassination attempt. A man, presumably Mr. Qian, greeted Shun Yi and offered him a place to stay. He politely excused himself, leaving Shun Yi to settle in. Soon Yulin, a woman from the Human Martial Arts Group, extended her congratulations and offered a friendly greeting. She expressed her gratitude for his support and admiration, emphasizing the importance of hard work and dedication. Shun Ye's new room was lavishly appointed, filled with luxury items. He realized the extent of the group's investment in him. He stood on the balcony, gazing at the city below. The sheer scale of the group's power and prestige was overwhelming. The city lights twinkled below, a breathtaking panorama. He felt a surge of ambition, a desire to reach even greater heights. Alone, he steeled his resolve. The upcoming entrance exams loomed, and he knew he needed to become stronger to succeed. A surge of dark energy erupted from within him, tendrils of shadow reaching out like grasping claws. The young man stood defiant at its center, a storm brewing within. He hesitated before a heavy, imposing door, the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. A single step forward would change everything. The door swung open, revealing a scene of utter devastation. Bones littered the floor, a grim testament to a recent, brutal struggle. He gasped, his eyes wide with shock. Trapped amidst the carnage, a desperate plea echoed in his ears. He recognized a voice, a friend in dire need of help. The skeletal remains of a monstrous creature lay scattered around him. He was clearly in a desperate situation, his own life hanging precariously in the balance. He saw the creature's glowing eyes, a chilling reminder of the danger he faced. His thoughts raced, searching for a solution to this dire predicament. Exhausted and wounded, he collapsed, his strength failing him. Yet, even in defeat, a spark of determination remained. He demanded all the help he could get, his voice laced with desperation. The stakes were high, and he was willing to do whatever it took to survive. A wave of panic washed over him as he witnessed the unfolding chaos. The situation was rapidly deteriorating, and he knew he had to act fast. He learned of a secret passage, a hidden escape route from the encroaching threat. He knew he had to use it to survive. He escaped through a hidden passage, narrowly avoiding a monstrous creature that emerged from the shadows. He was barely able to escape. He blasted through a door, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. His escape was fueled by adrenaline and desperation. He was confronted by someone who knew his secret, someone who held a significant piece of information about his past. The encounter was tense and full of unspoken implications. He was offered a proposition, a chance to repay a debt, and potentially gain an advantage. The decision was a difficult one, fraught with risk and uncertainty. He contemplated his options, weighing the potential rewards against the inherent dangers. His future hung in the balance, depending on the choices he made. Shinyi stood amidst a pile of discarded armor, a wave of dark energy rippling around him. He was assessing the junk, a skeptical look on his face, when a voice, seemingly from nowhere, instructed him to mask his aura. He managed to piece together a suit of armor, muttering about the difficulty. The armor pulsed with a faint, dark energy, and he realized it was more than just scraps. It was imbued with the power to summon a skeletal warhorse. A skeletal figure, cloaked in darkness, appeared. Its words confirmed the armor's potent death aura, a disguise that would fool other undead. The transformation was complete. He now looked like a bona fide undead warrior, a chilling sight. He considered his options, the skeletal warhorse a tempting but risky escape route. The thought of a title like Ghost Rider crossed his mind, a grim smile playing on his lips. With a final surge of dark energy, the transformation was complete. He was ready, but a sense of foreboding hung in the air. He steeled his resolve, preparing for whatever lay ahead. The weight of the ring, and the consequences of failure, pressed heavily upon him. A young man, silhouetted against a backdrop of swirling darkness and spectral figures, stood defiant. The title, barely visible, hinted at a world teetering on the brink. He emerged from the wreckage, coughing, the dust settling around him. The place was utterly devastated. Suddenly, a skeletal figure, eyes glowing ominously, lunged from the shadows. Fear, sharp and cold, pierced the air. Soldiers in medieval armor appeared, alerted by the commotion. Their orders were swift and brutal: kill the intruder. He raised his hands defensively, a desperate plea forming on his lips. He was not one of them. A tense standoff ensued. The soldiers, initially hostile, hesitated, sensing something was amiss. He was human, yet here, in the undead territory, he reacted instantly, his movements a blur. A dagger, nightshade, flashed in the dim light. The dagger's description was revealed: a weapon of assassination, blessed by silent sanctity, only wieldable by those with uncorrupted souls. One of the soldiers, clearly recognizing the weapon, ordered the others to stand down. He was on their side. The young man, relieved, was dismissed. His mother, watching from afar, breathed a sigh of relief. He pondered the bone mask given to him, a gift with hidden meaning. He was determined to find out what it symbolized. The soldier, Roman, provided him with supplies and thanked him for his help. A bond of trust, forged in the crucible of battle, began to form. A high-ranking official, observing from a distance, recognized the nightshade dagger. He needed to know the wielder's mission. The Baron Warren, a powerful figure, confronted the young man, his anger palpable. He demanded to know his identity. The young man, his dark blue hair partially obscured by a dark hood, stood defiant amidst a circle of armored figures. His voice, sharp with barely controlled fury, cut through the air. He would remember Warren. A booming laugh echoed from a figure in red amidst the soldiers. The Baron, arrogant and powerful, dismissed the threat with a contemptuous wave of his hand. A blur of motion. Steel clashed against steel. The young man moved with impossible speed. Confusion rippled through the Baron's ranks. His lieutenant, a burly man with a grizzled beard, voiced their shared bewilderment. The young man had simply vanished. The Baron, momentarily thrown, recovered his composure. He noted the young man's audacity in announcing his name, a reckless act in the midst of battle. The lieutenant, urging his men forward, felt the sting of frustration. Their quarry had escaped, leaving them to pick up the pieces. Whispers of nameless assassins, masters of stealth, circulated among the soldiers. The Baron's enemies were proving more resourceful than anticipated. The young man, having escaped through a cleverly concealed trapdoor, cursed Warren's underhanded tactics. He had almost been caught. A young man, seemingly suspended in a void of swirling darkness and spectral figures, raised his hands, a faint, ethereal glow emanating from his palms. He reviewed the text on the screen, his brow furrowed in concentration. The words spoke of a rare and powerful ability, attainable only under the most perilous of circumstances. A wave of apprehension washed over him. The risk was immense, the reward potentially life-altering. He weighed his options, the gravity of the decision pressing down. Meanwhile, a blonde elf, her face etched with worry, contemplated a dire situation. Escape seemed impossible, the odds insurmountable. He muttered to himself, the words a mix of determination and trepidation. The stakes were high, a single chance to achieve something extraordinary. A notification appeared on his device, a message from someone named Luo Feichuan. A visitor awaited. He agreed to the meeting, a flicker of hope amidst the uncertainty. The thought of helping Luo Feichuan's family provided a small measure of comfort. A woman with striking purple hair stood silently, her gaze intense. She spoke his name, a question hanging in the air. He felt a surge of power, a latent ability awakening within him. The title, Great Swordsman, resonated with newfound strength. A younger woman approached, introducing herself as Luo Feichuan's sister. She had questions, seeking answers about a recent tragedy. She explained the rarity of the title he possessed, highlighting the significance of his newfound power and the events that led to it. The woman revealed she had already dealt with those responsible for her brother's death, her expression a mask of cold resolve. He stared, his face a mixture of shock and disbelief. The weight of her actions settled upon him, the implications profound. She casually mentioned having dealt with others involved in the weapon tampering incident, her demeanor betraying little emotion. She explained her brother's seemingly ordinary life, a stark contrast to his hidden potential and tragic end. The sergeant's surprise was palpable. A young woman with striking purple hair leveled a pointed question at the young man before her. Why the silence? She continued, her tone laced with a hint of accusation, implying that he was being cowardly by not seeking revenge for those who had wronged him. He responded, his voice soft but firm, explaining that he understood her perspective but that his actions were justified. The conversation shifted to the investigation, with the woman revealing that she had already interrogated the assassin, but the trail had gone cold, leaving her frustrated. With a surge of determination, she resolved to find the person who had hired the assassin, no matter the cost. Only then, she thought, could her brother finally rest in peace. A celestial rift opened above them, a breathtaking spectacle of light and energy. The young man watched in disbelief as the woman effortlessly cleaved the sky in two with a single, swift motion. He was astonished by the sheer power displayed, unable to comprehend how she had managed such a feat. The woman, in turn, sought his help, explaining that she needed his assistance in her investigation. She provided him with contact information, thanking him for his help and cautioning him to stay safe. The young man reflected on the events, realizing the gravity of the situation and the danger he was in. He learned that the woman was still in school, despite her involvement in such dangerous matters. The weight of his situation pressed down on him as he contemplated the powerful enemies he had made. Alone in his room, he held a glowing star, a symbol of the power he had recently acquired, and resolved to rely on himself. A young man, Shen Yi, stood silhouetted against a backdrop of swirling, dark energy, spectral figures writhing around him. He was still recovering from a recent encounter, his thoughts drifting back to the nightmare crystal he'd found. It was an accident, he mused, but one with potentially dire consequences. He hadn't even unpacked the combat gear provided by Luo Feichuan, his police contact. A wave of unease washed over him. Shinny began to search his bag, hoping to find something useful amongst the rations and first aid supplies. He found a small, green crystal, its eerie glow hinting at its otherworldly nature. It was another nightmare crystal, and he realized its significance, a way to contact the Shadow Ant Brotherhood. He pondered the risks, knowing that contacting them could be dangerous, but also necessary. Meanwhile, a letter arrived, detailing a recent encounter with a powerful assassin, Baron Warren, and the crystal's connection to the ongoing conflict. The letter also revealed the assassin's interest in the crystals, further emphasizing their importance. A woman, Bing Bing, appeared, her presence unexpected. She offered her help, explaining that she needed his assistance in the Nightmare Realm. The scene shifted to a desolate battlefield, littered with the corpses of fallen soldiers. Wounded soldiers called for help, their cries echoing through the night. Shen Yi, now in his new attire, cautiously approached, aware of the dangers lurking nearby. He encountered a massive, undead giant, its presence a stark reminder of the horrors he faced. The giant was wearing a strange mask, its origins and purpose unknown, adding another layer of mystery to the unfolding events. Shen Yi and his companions examined the mask, their expressions a mixture of confusion and concern. None of them recognized it. Frustration mounted as their search proved fruitless. Finding the mask's origin felt like searching for a needle in a haystack. Suddenly, a monstrous figure emerged from the shadows, a werewolf, its armor bearing the marks of a brutal battle. Shen Yi, seizing on a new lead, turned to the massive creature, hoping it might recognize the mask's scent or appearance. The wolf, however, corrected him, revealing that it had seen the mask before. It belonged to a one-armed centurion. This revelation thrilled Shen Yi. Werewolves, he knew, possessed an uncanny ability to sense magical energies, making this discovery crucial. He noticed a distinctive hand gesture in the remains of the werewolf, a mark he recognized as belonging to the Shadow Ant. With a renewed sense of purpose, Shenyi addressed the fallen warrior, hoping to glean more information about the mask's owner. A young man, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. His very presence seemed to challenge the encroaching darkness. He stumbled, a grimace twisting his features as he pulled off a pair of boots. The stench was overpowering. A jolt of energy surged through him as he discovered something within the boot. His eyes widened in surprise. He had found enough special items to unlock a new ability. A small, blue insignia pulsed with arcane energy. The insignia was identified as the Night Shadow Insignia, a powerful artifact capable of activating specific weapons. He held the insignia, a surge of power coursing through him as it bonded with his weapon, transforming it into a blade of pure energy. The weapon's stats were upgraded, enhancing its capabilities significantly. He was now equipped for a more challenging mission. He received a mission briefing, detailing the urgent investigation of unusual undead activity. The stakes were high. He reviewed the mission details, noting the location marked by 3 daggers. A contact, Roman, had given him a lead. He questioned some soldiers about unusual undead activity, but they claimed ignorance. He pressed on, determined to find answers. He encountered more undead, but this time, one offered to provide intel. He was wary, remembering past betrayals. He learned that the undead were his people, but they were hostile towards him. He needed to tread carefully. He was offered intel, but he knew revealing too much would put him in danger. He needed to be selective. He received crucial intel about new components used in the undead's artillery, significantly boosting its power and firing rate. He learned the location of the main undead army's camp. He was now ready to infiltrate and gather more information. A cunning plan formed in Shun Ye's mind. He would use the wounded soldier ruse to infiltrate the undead ranks. He questioned the practicality of such a scheme, considering the undead's seemingly non-existent medical care. The sheer number of undead and their high-ranking knowledge was a significant obstacle. But Shun Ye had a plan, a bold one involving a powerful undead. With a mighty heave, he lifted the massive warhammer, his muscles straining. He worried about losing his voice, hindering his ability to call for help if needed. The hammer fell, the impact echoing through the desolate landscape. He coughed, winded from the exertion, questioning his own commitment to the charade. His cries for help were faint, but someone heard them. Help was on its way. Others had noticed the wounded man. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. Power crackled around him, a raw energy threatening to consume all. Across the land, a woman in religious garb raised her hands, channeling a vibrant green energy that arced towards a fallen figure. He lay still, the green energy seeping into his body, a faint glow emanating from within. The young man awoke in a grand hall, surrounded by regal figures. Relief washed over him as he realized he was safe, but confusion clouded his mind. Prince Norton, a blond man in regal attire, approached, his voice a mixture of concern and formality. He introduced himself, confirming the young man's identity. Meanwhile, an old man, Lord Lawrence, spoke of a desperate plea for aid, his words painting a grim picture of devastation. Prince Norton confirmed the authenticity of the message, the gravity of the situation settling upon him. The young man learned the horrifying truth. His homeland, Rhine, had been annihilated by the undead. Grief washed over him, the weight of his loss almost unbearable. He was the sole survivor. He was informed of the deaths of his family, the reality of his solitude sinking in. Despite his grief, he requested to remain on the battlefield, his resolve unwavering. His desire for vengeance burned fiercely, fueling his determination to fight. Prince Norton, recognizing his potential, explained the vital mission awaiting him. The young man, imbued with newfound power, prepared for the task ahead. He looked towards the camp, a new determination in his eyes, ready to face whatever lay ahead. He ran, a blur of motion against the darkening landscape. The ground trembled beneath his feet as he left his pursuers far behind. A desperate slide brought him to a halt, the impact jarring but necessary. He needed to regroup to plan his next move. He pushed himself up, his breath ragged, but his eyes sharp and focused. The camp lay ahead, vulnerable and unsuspecting. He approached cautiously, his request simple, to fight alongside his comrades, to avenge their fallen brothers. The young man's courage was undeniable. A curious elf, her eyes fixed on the bracelet adorning his wrist, questioned its origin. It was a powerful artifact, one that held the key to his destiny. He explained that an elf named Laney had given it to him, a reward for exposing an undead plot. This explained the bracelet's presence, but not its power. The archmage, Eudoria, appeared, summoned by the bracelet's magic. Her question hung in the air. Why did a human possess such a powerful elven artifact? A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. Power crackled in his hands. A blonde elf, Laney, urgently questioned a dark-haired man about the young man's whereabouts. He confirmed having encountered him. The elf and a man in armor discussed the young man's remarkable survival of numerous calamities, suggesting he be sent to the imperial capital for study. Orders were given to provide him with identification and accommodations, while also documenting the event for the Imperial Military Academy. The young man, still recovering, was asked his full name. He feigned amnesia, claiming ignorance of local customs to avoid revealing his true identity. An elderly man explained the young man's memory loss stemmed from a head injury inflicted by the undead Titan's hammer. He thanked the elder for his assistance, their conversation concluding with a promise to meet again. The young man's recent actions had earned him renown, granting him the opportunity to choose a self-created title. He contemplated the implications of his new title, the boy who lived, finding it absurd given his lack of a lightning bolt scar. He considered his options for discarding the title, ultimately deciding to disappear for a while to let it fade. Meanwhile, others discussed the young man's unexpected presence and the impact of his brief interaction with Prince Norton. Laney and an elder discussed the young man's impressive skills, noting the high-ranking shadow hand insignia he carried. The elder further emphasized the young man's extraordinary talent, noting the rarity of such achievements at his age. The dagger, Nightfall, was recognized, and a Medal of Valor was suggested for the young man. He was found at the Shadow Hand's tent, a key intel drop-off point near the army encampment. The scene opens in a dimly lit tavern. A young man in armor sits at a table, his gaze fixed on a large, dark tapestry depicting a shadowy figure. He clears his throat, a nervous tremor in his voice, hoping the shadows might offer some protection. Outside the tavern, a burly man with a shaved head approaches, his hand forming a rock-and-roll gesture. He calls out to someone inside, inquiring about the news. Inside, the young man proudly displays a small, glowing green object, explaining that he obtained it from an undead soulfire cannon. He offers it in exchange for information. The burly man, intrigued, asks what the young man has to offer. He then reveals a tactical camouflage dagger, detailing its deadly properties. The young man, having presented the soulfire cannon component, is asked if he has anything else. He produces a small whistle, claiming it's not useful enough for battlefield use. A horse suddenly rears up inside a tent, startling the young man and the burly man. The scene shifts to a close-up of the horse's agitated state. The young man comments on the horse's unusual behavior, noting its tendency to play dead. The burly man suggests pairing it with the dagger. Still unsatisfied, the burly man asks if there's anything else. The young man presents a pair of special lenses, boasting of their ability to see through clothes. Meanwhile, in a different location, the young man is shown discussing his need for new abilities with another individual. Supplies are low, and he is given a choice of 2 crystals. He is offered 2 skills, Bleeding, which causes endless bleeding, and Frostwind, a knockback kick. He chooses both. He expresses his need for both skills. A voice interrupts, advising him to choose Frostwind. The young man is startled by the sudden voice, his attention drawn to the crystals before him. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. The air crackled with unseen energy. He listened intently as an older man explained the process, his words emphasizing the risks involved in acquiring the power he sought. The man continued, detailing the specific components needed to unlock the power, each one more dangerous than the last. He agreed to the terms, understanding the gravity of his decision. The quest for power had begun. A flurry of motion, a blur of blue energy, depicted the young man's intense training. He honed his skills, preparing for the challenges ahead. He approached a man, his face etched with determination. The exchange was brief, a transaction of vital importance. The man handed over a pouch of gold, a payment for information. The young man accepted it, his gaze unwavering. He then sought out a skeletal figure, his request clear. He needed an undead ability. The skeletal figure explained the requirements for the spell, emphasizing the need for psychic energy and agility. He focused, channeling his energy, and successfully cast the spell, a shadowy illusion taking shape. He knew he needed to find a secluded place to practice this dangerous magic, away from prying eyes. The shadowy illusion materialized, a testament to his newly acquired power. He tested its capabilities. He reflected on the spell's limitations, realizing its usefulness was somewhat underwhelming. Despite its flaws, he continued his training, determined to master all the abilities he sought. A regal figure appeared, recognizing him and praising his accomplishments. A reward was offered. He received a medal and a letter, his future now seemingly set. A new chapter began. Shinyi stood in the fading twilight, a quiet satisfaction settling over him. The prince's generosity had secured his immediate needs, and the gold from his recent mission would ensure his family's comfort back home. His goals here were complete. It was time to return. The city rose before him, a towering testament to human ambition, a stark contrast to the shadowed world he'd just left behind. A notification popped up on his phone screen. His reward had been successfully transferred. A simple thanks escaped his lips. A phone call interrupted his quiet contemplation. It was Hao Yu, brimming with excitement about Shun Ye's recent success and eager to celebrate. He hadn't checked his phone since entering the nightmare realm. The sheer volume of messages was overwhelming, a testament to his newfound fame. Scrolling through the messages, he paused at one from Zhao Yibing, expressing pride and offering a celebratory movie night. Bingbing's message was less celebratory, a subtle reminder of their unrequited feelings. He sighed, acknowledging the complexities of their relationship. Hao Yu's invitation was met with hesitation. The current situation made a public celebration too risky, but the thought of celebrating with his friend was tempting. Despite the danger, the bond he shared with Hao Yu, forged in hardship, was something he cherished. He decided to make the most of their friendship while he could. A plan formed. A discreet lunch meeting in the Human Martial Arts Group's lobby, a perfect opportunity to celebrate and address Hao Yu's curiosity about his new workplace. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. Power crackled around him, a silent promise of the storm to come. He found himself in a stark, modern hall, the air thick with anticipation. A group of imposing figures watched him from across the room, their faces impassive. The newcomers were unlike any he'd encountered before. Their aura was distinctly different, unsettlingly powerful. A question hung in the air. Were these the professionals Qian had mentioned? He stood awkwardly amidst the crowd, the weight of their gazes heavy upon him. A simple apology escaped his lips, a nervous attempt to ease the tension. A nearby man chuckled, sharing a relatable experience of similar awe and nervousness when he first joined their ranks. The young man felt a slight easing of his apprehension. Across the hall, a stern-faced man simply shook his head, a silent dismissal of the newcomer's presence. The atmosphere shifted, growing colder. He reflected on his initial impressions of these professionals, recalling a youthful anger at their perceived arrogance. Now he understood their power. Outside, a woman in a wide-brimmed hat approached a burly man, extending an invitation to dinner. The day's work was almost over. Meanwhile, a young man stood waiting, his impatience evident in his posture. He was ready to move on. The woman, however, was not in a forgiving mood. Her sharp words and threatening gesture made it clear she wouldn't tolerate any further harassment. A nearby officer intervened, calmly explaining the situation. He vouched for the young man, a school friend, hoping to de-escalate the situation. She agreed to let him pass, but only after he promised to stay put. He readily agreed, eager to move on. However, he decided to retrieve his friend himself, his determination overriding caution. He was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The woman, despite her concern, understood the urgency. She reminded him of the risks, but ultimately conceded, prioritizing his safety. The young man stepped inside, his jaw dropping at the sheer scale of the place. It was far grander than he could have ever imagined. Shenyi, a young man in a light blue hospital gown, stood before a sleek elevator, a conversation with someone unseen concluding with his agreement to visit their location. The elevator doors slid open, revealing a bustling hallway filled with figures in dark clothing. His companion remarked on the high floor number. He checked his phone, a notification alert interrupting his thoughts. A message arrived, reporting a mangled body found, but not the person they were searching for. Another message followed, showing a picture. He opened a video on his phone, his eyes widening as he watched. A message appeared on his phone screen. The nurse's silencing was suspected to be because of him. He began to walk down a long corridor, a sense of urgency propelling his steps. A blurry image of a figure appeared on his phone, prompting a background check on everyone around him. His eyes reflected the gravity of the situation, a mixture of determination and apprehension. He learned that Chun Haoyu had been searching for him the previous day, adding another layer of mystery to the unfolding events. He paused, looking out at the city, a question hanging in the air. What was wrong? A young man, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood defiant amid swirling shadows. The air crackled with unseen energy. He ascended a towering structure, each step echoing with the weight of anticipation. The upper floors were a mystery, a place he'd never been before. He pressed onward, driven by a need to reach the very top. The view from there, he was told, was unlike anything he'd ever seen. He arrived, breathless but resolute. This was it, the culmination of his journey. Suddenly, a fierce attack sent him sprawling. A blinding flash of light momentarily obscured his vision. He reacted instantly, his body moving with practiced precision. The attacker was fast, but he was faster. The blow landed, a sharp sting that left him reeling. He realized, with a jolt, that it was an illusion. He countered with a swift, decisive move, his own power surging. The illusion shattered, revealing the attacker's true form. A fierce battle erupted, a whirlwind of blows and counterblows. Energy crackled in the air as they clashed. He unleashed a devastating technique, drawing upon newly acquired abilities. The impact was immediate and overwhelming. His opponent, weakened and surprised, stumbled back. He was alone, and his foe was clearly on the verge of defeat. With a final, powerful strike, he finished the fight. His opponent was defeated, but the victory felt hollow. He stood over his fallen foe, his breath ragged, his mind racing. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. He prepared himself for whatever might come next, his resolve hardening. He would face any challenge, no matter the cost. A powerful technique activated, enhancing his speed and strength. He was ready to strike again. He moved with terrifying speed, his movements a blur. The secret technique was far more powerful than he'd ever imagined. The battle raged, a flurry of blows and energy blasts. Shun Yi, despite being outnumbered, moved with impossible speed, his movements a blur. His opponent, a figure shrouded in shadow, sneered. He'd underestimated the boy, his hidden weapon now revealed. The sounds of gunfire echoed through the building, triggering an immediate response from security personnel. Shun Yi, however, remained focused on his immediate threat. Alarms blared, the announcement cutting through the chaos. He had no time to explain. Survival was the priority. A woman, her face partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, watched the unfolding scene from a distance. She muttered to herself, impressed by the young man's skill. Meanwhile, a police officer interrogated a wounded man, demanding answers. The man coughed up blood, his words strained and hesitant. He refused to cooperate, his defiance unwavering despite the pain. The officer's patience was wearing thin. Later, a group of individuals discussed the events, piecing together the clues. The assassin's death was a setback, but the investigation continued. A young man, bathed in an ethereal purple light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. The air crackled with unseen energy. In a sterile, brightly lit room, 3 figures huddled over a body. The conversation was hushed, filled with the weight of a recent, mysterious death. The details were scarce. The deceased had left no trace, no identification, nothing to explain his sudden demise. A highly skilled assassin, the report concluded. A woman, her face partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, stood over the body, her expression grim. It wasn't her fault. The man's skills had been flawless. He gave instructions for the others to leave, choosing to remain behind, alone with his thoughts. He waited patiently, a sense of foreboding settling over him. He knew this was more than just a simple investigation. A sudden command echoed in the silence, a surge of dark energy emanating from him. He awoke, his eyes glowing an eerie green, a newfound ability awakening within him. He scoffed at the threat, his newfound power making him bold. He wouldn't cooperate. The interrogator, intrigued by this unexpected development, found the situation far more interesting than anticipated. Bound and suspended, a figure was subjected to a dark ritual, the air thick with malevolent energy. A searing pain engulfed him as dark energy coursed through his body, a transformation beginning. He screamed in agony as his body was consumed by flames, a terrifying metamorphosis. The inferno raged, consuming everything in its path. The transformation was complete. A skeletal figure emerged from the flames, its eyes glowing menacingly. The transformation was complete. He roared in defiance, his new form radiating power and malice. The transformation was complete. A searing inferno consumed him, the flames twisting into malevolent kanji. This was the price of defiance, a torment that stretched across eons. The heat was unimaginable, a prelude to an eternity of suffering. Each 100 million-year cycle of torture was merely a warm-up. Even if the tormented soul remained silent, even stronger wraiths would be summoned to intensify the agony. The entities reveled in the stubborn defiance of their victims. A sudden, explosive burst of energy erupted from the hospital bed. The young man, Shun Yi, was jolted awake. He checked his phone, a grim smile playing on his lips. The plan was working, the assassin was finally cracking. Evan's detailed report was a testament to the assassin's meticulous planning, a testament to the depth of his depravity. Meanwhile, a few minutes earlier, on the rooftop of the girls' dormitory, a tense scene unfolded. Mr. Han received an update. The bait hadn't worked. Shun Yi hadn't fallen for the trap. A phone call interrupted her. It was an acceptance letter to the elite high school program. She smiled, relieved. The news was a welcome distraction from the day's events. She expressed her gratitude to Mr. Han, promising to be punctual for their evening meeting. But her peaceful moment was shattered. A woman with purple hair confronted her, demanding answers. The purple-haired woman's sword flashed, a blur of motion. The other girl reacted instinctively, her own skills honed to a razor's edge. Zhao Yibing, the purple-haired woman, warned her opponent. She knew what mattered most to the other girl, her reputation. Unfazed, the other girl defiantly refused to cooperate. She knew the police would soon arrive. A phone call interrupted the confrontation. More intel had arrived. An assassin had been apprehended and was confessing. A young woman, frantically flipping through pages on her phone, looked up in alarm. Shun Yi, she gasped, her voice laced with a mix of fear and disbelief. The words, you're here for revenge. Shun Yi sent you, didn't he? Hung heavy in the air between them. A man, his face partially obscured by shadow, calmly scrolled through his phone. His words, delivered with chilling nonchalance, painted a grim picture. We're assassins from the League of Assassins. Not long ago, we received a joint contract. The mission was to take you out while making it seem like an accident. The scene shifted, revealing a dark, shadowy alleyway. A figure, cloaked in darkness, spoke with a chilling precision. I took out Shun How You, impersonated him, and lured you to the hospital. That thing should have activated, and logically, you should have died there. But not only did you survive, there was even a witness. We had to not only kill you, but also figure out why that ritual failed and retrieve the artifact. He continued, his voice low and measured, detailing the meticulous plan. Then some cop found us, but he was too green, so we took advantage of him and discovered you two were connected. That's when we adjusted our plan, killed him at the station, impersonated him, tried to get intel, and finished you off. Too bad it didn't work. Until today, when I finally got my shot. I hid it in the sewers under the school. Shinyi, the body I mentioned earlier, it was found in the school's sewers. The assassin's partner, his face etched with grim determination, turned his gaze towards the other man. A single word, heavy with unspoken questions and simmering rage, escaped his lips. Tell me. The question hung in the air, a silent challenge. Who hired you? The sharp demand cut through the tension, a desperate plea for answers amidst the unfolding chaos. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and grotesque figures. His power, immense and terrifying, pulsed around him. He lay on a hospital bed, his eyes closed, a faint green glow emanating from his hand. The question hung in the air. Who hired him? The man's gaze hardened. He was searching for answers, for the identity of the person who orchestrated this deadly game. The name Skinner was mentioned, a notorious killer. He was at the Maplewood Hotel, planning to eliminate the eyewitness, a nurse. The question of the killer's weaknesses lingered. His reputation preceded him. Taking on a seemingly insignificant target would tarnish his image. Yet, he wondered why the hit hadn't been ordered directly. He dismissed the notion that the mastermind was overseeing the operation from the shadows. He believed the financier was someone powerful. The conversation turned to the killer's unique hobby, cannibalism. A visit was planned. A phone call ended abruptly. The man, amused, noted that the girl was going after the Skinner. With a swift, brutal move, he incapacitated his opponent, the green glow intensifying. The victim's fate was sealed. He continued his pursuit, his movements fluid and deadly. The chase was on. He ignored a question, his focus unwavering. He was on a mission, and nothing would deter him. A grand, imposing mansion stood silhouetted against the twilight sky. The scene was set. Inside, a meal was being served. The details were meticulously described, hinting at a hidden meaning. He savored the meal, noting the subtle flavors and textures. His senses were heightened, his mind sharp. He commented on the exquisite balance of flavors, comparing it to a fine cherry. The blood sauce added a unique touch. The nurse, impressed by the meal, expressed her admiration. The tension between them was palpable. A man with silver hair, impeccably dressed in a beige suit, sat back, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. He tapped a message on his phone, a smug expression highlighting his satisfaction. He paused. A flicker of annoyance crossing his features as an interruption disrupted his moment of self-congratulation. The interruption was a message, informing him of a new challenge, a personal assignment, a task that required his direct involvement. He considered the proposition. The inherent risk weighed against the potential reward. The offer was intriguing, but he needed more information. He was dining, enjoying a glass of wine, when he received a picture of his target. He scoffed at the suggestion of a simple girl. His standards were far higher. The scene shifted, focusing on the man's intense gaze as he reviewed the details of the assignment. A sudden shift in mood, a playful, almost predatory gleam entered his eyes as he contemplated the upcoming encounter. He chuckled, a predatory amusement coloring his tone as he anticipated the thrill of the hunt. He received confirmation of the time and location. The plan was set in motion. He meticulously prepared, ensuring every detail was perfect. His attention to detail was almost obsessive. He paused, taking a moment to adjust his appearance before heading to his destination. Even the smallest details mattered. He almost forgot something crucial, a detail that could make or break the entire operation. The relationship with his associate ended abruptly, a swift and decisive conclusion to a professional partnership. He prepared to meet his target, ensuring the encounter would go exactly as planned. He wouldn't allow any interference. The scene shifts to a violent confrontation, a bloody end to the associate's life. The man's actions were swift and brutal. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling darkness. Unseen forces crackled around him, a silent battle waged in the unseen. He spoke a phrase, his voice barely a whisper against the storm within. A technological marvel responded, recognizing him. A surge of energy erupted, a brilliant blue light arcing across the sky. It was a spectacle of power and grace. From the heart of the energy, a sleek, emerald motorcycle materialized. It hummed with latent power, a machine of impossible design. He gazed upon his new ride, a mixture of awe and disbelief evident in his eyes. It was more than a machine. It was a miracle, a companion, a man with dark hair and sunglasses, explained the vehicle's capabilities, his voice a low hum of technical details. He learned of its flight capabilities, a feature that both excited and slightly intimidated him. The machine was far beyond anything he'd ever imagined. He admired the bike, considering its potential. A thought crossed his mind. A red one would be even more striking. He tested the bike's color-shifting capabilities, marveling at its advanced chameleon-like coating. The machine responded to his every whim. His companion sighed, admitting that while impressive, he had expected something more, perhaps a martial arts manual. The man explained the bike's true purpose, an escape vehicle, a last resort for survival in a dire situation. Its speed was unmatched. He wondered about a certain woman, hoping she was safe. His companion reassured him, explaining the security measures in place. His companion informed him that the entire floor would be locked down for the night, ensuring their safety until morning. Two women walked through the night, their destination unknown, but their purpose clear. A sense of urgency hung in the air. One of the women expressed concern about the potential repercussions of bringing the other woman along. A sense of foreboding filled the scene. The imposing silhouette of an elite academy loomed against the night sky. A hushed voice, barely a whisper, described the escape vehicle as well concealed, almost undetectable. He recounted a deal made, academic success in exchange for ruining a classmate's reputation. The price of ambition, it seemed, was steep. She listened, a chilling realization dawning. Her actions had unforeseen consequences, leading her toward a dangerous abyss. The wind whipped around them, carrying fallen leaves as an ultimatum was delivered: cooperate or face the consequences. With a defiant snort, she turned and walked away, leaving the other girl alone in the gathering darkness. Footsteps echoed on the pavement, each one a beat in a silent retreat. The leaves scattered like memories. She paused, her hand resting on the hilt of her sword, a moment of quiet contemplation before the storm. A shadowy figure emerged from the depths of the academy, his presence heavy with unspoken menace. He stood, a picture of quiet menace, observing the girl from a distance. His intentions remained unclear. A rose was offered, a symbol of unexpected generosity, a stark contrast to the looming danger. She accepted the gift, gratitude warring with apprehension. The threat, though unspoken, hung heavy in the air. A sudden gust of wind swept through the hallway, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. She felt a sudden chill, a premonition of danger, as she reached out to take his arm. A warning was issued. An unseen threat approached, its intent deadly and precise. The moment, poised between romance and peril, demanded immediate action. The stakes were high, the danger real. A young man, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. The air crackled with unseen energy. He listened intently as a silver-haired man, impeccably dressed, spoke of securing a place at one of the top 3 high schools. The opportunity, he explained, was a gateway to a life beyond the ordinary. The young man, however, expressed his doubts about his readiness. The older man reassured him, promising to help him grow stronger. A notification appeared on a phone screen, confirming the young man's eligibility for the exam. Relief washed over him. He looked up, his eyes filled with gratitude, as the older man smiled warmly. The older man's expression shifted, a subtle glint appearing in his eyes. "Harvest time," he murmured. He leaned in and kissed the young woman. The moment was charged with unspoken intensity. The young woman reciprocated the kiss, her own feelings evident in the way she clung to him. Their shared creation, a masterpiece, was complete. A sense of accomplishment filled the air. The young woman's mother watched from a distance, her expression unreadable. The older man's smile widened, a chilling anticipation in his eyes. He couldn't wait to savor the fruits of his labor. A powerful surge of energy erupted from the building, shattering windows and sending shockwaves through the city. A young woman with purple hair arrived, but she was too late to stop what was happening. She confronted the older man, her fury evident in her eyes and actions. He was warned not to touch her. He lunged at her, his movement a blur of speed and intent. The confrontation was about to begin. A young woman with striking purple hair stood poised, a faint blue energy swirling around a golden amulet in her hand. Her opponent, a man with silver hair, launched a swift attack, the air crackling with blue energy. He moved with speed and precision, his blade a blur as he deflected her attack. The clash of energy sent sparks flying. She countered with a fierce determination, her voice ringing out, "I'll give you anything. Just don't hurt her." The silver-haired man paused, his gaze hardening. He demanded to know who had hired her. He recognized her fighting style, identifying her as Xiao Mengyu, a prodigy. He warned her that escape was impossible, his silk threads already surrounding them. Undeterred, she prepared for a final, desperate gambit. Her confidence was unshakable. Her body, she declared, could handle her sword better than ever. Meanwhile, the silver-haired man reflected on their brief encounter, lamenting their imminent parting. Elsewhere, a sinister figure, its form obscured by shadows, spoke of savoring its next victim. The creature's obsession with Bing Bing was palpable, its words laced with a chilling intensity. With a terrifying roar, it vowed to devour them both completely. The purple-haired woman, her eyes blazing with defiance, prepared to meet her fate. A young man, radiating power, stood defiant amid swirling darkness. The air crackled with energy, hinting at a battle just concluded. A shadowy figure, its form barely visible, loomed over a woman with vibrant purple hair. The air thrummed with unspoken threats. The shadowy figure spoke, its voice a low growl, promising to avoid collateral damage in its pursuit of revenge. A man with silver hair, impeccably dressed, appeared, his expression a mask of cold calculation. He seemed to be assessing the situation. He chuckled, a sound devoid of humor, acknowledging the complications arising from his actions. His words hinted at the high stakes involved, the potential consequences of his betrayal. He addressed the purple-haired woman, his words a chilling promise of violence. The silver-haired man continued, expressing gratitude for the perfect works of art before him and offering to escort one to safety. He carried a woman, seemingly unconscious, cradling her gently as he spoke of devotion. A young man with short, dark blue hair looked out over the city, a pensive expression on his face. He was lost in thought. His thoughts turned to a woman named Xiao Mengyu, his concern growing with each unanswered call. He questioned the chances of Xiao Mengyu against the assassin, seeking the unvarnished truth. He reflected on the gravity of the situation, the escalating death toll, and the risks he was willing to take. He acknowledged his mistake in putting Xiao Mengyu in harm's way, his regret palpable. The weight of the situation bore down on him. He couldn't let her die. A young woman's worried voice crackled through the phone, her words barely audible above the storm's fury. She was desperately trying to reach Shunyi, but an unknown number kept interrupting. He answered, his own voice tight with concern. His mother had warned him about encountering something strange, something supernatural, and now, this. Shunyi was racing against time. His mother, a nurse who had witnessed a ghostly encounter, was in danger, and he was the only one who could help. But a chilling thought crossed his mind. Was this a trap? He hesitated, weighing the risks. The city was a dangerous place, especially at night. But the thought of his mother spurred him into action. He grabbed his Ghostfire bike, ready to face whatever lay ahead. He moved with a grim determination, his every step fueled by a desperate need to reach his mother. The danger was palpable, but he pressed on, his resolve unwavering. He arrived at the Maplewood Hotel, only to find the 10th floor locked down. A sinister presence, a manager named Qian, was clearly involved. Escape seemed impossible. Trapped, Shunyi had only one option, to jump. He reallocated all his stats to agility, preparing for a death-defying leap of faith. He launched himself from the building, a silhouette against the stormy sky. The wind howled, a chilling soundtrack to his desperate gamble. Even with enhanced agility, the fall was terrifying. But he had a mission, and there were things he had to do, no matter the cost. The storm raged around him, a chaotic ballet of wind and rain. It was the perfect cover for his daring escape. He plummeted downwards, the city lights blurring into streaks below. The cold wind bit at him, a stark reminder of the danger he faced. A scream escaped his lips, a sound swallowed by the storm. He was falling fast, his fate hanging precariously in the balance. A young man, bathed in an ethereal purple light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows. Dark, spectral figures writhed around him, their forms barely discernible in the gloom. He had just narrowly escaped a perilous situation, his escape a testament to his quick thinking and agility. The text above him detailed the date and time of this harrowing event. The scene shifted to a high-rise building, where a figure leaped from a great height. A desperate cry escaped their lips. Door! A skull-shaped icon appeared, a silent observer of the unfolding chaos. The fall continued, seemingly without end. The falling figure, however, managed to summon a door mid-air, a testament to their uncanny abilities. A safe landing was secured. Above, the city lights twinkled, oblivious to the near-death experience unfolding below. The escape was complete, but the danger was far from over. He explained his technique to himself, a muttered monologue about creating footholds out of thin air. The landing was picture-perfect, a graceful conclusion to a death-defying feat. A sense of relief washed over him. He landed, his breath ragged, but his resolve unbroken. He muttered to himself, "You're insane." He thought about his near-death experience, the realization that he was far from safe. His thoughts turned to escape. With a surge of adrenaline, he leaped onto a waiting motorcycle, the engine roaring to life beneath him. The motorcycle sped off, a blur of motion against the cityscape. A philosophical reflection on life and death accompanied the ride. He sped through the city streets, a whirlwind of speed and danger. The city lights blurred into streaks of color. He reached his destination, the west side of the city. A sense of foreboding hung in the air. He arrived at a specific location, where he was met by a young woman. She asked if he was the one who had called her. The young woman explained that she had tried to contact her mother, but to no avail. She asked for help. The insistent ringing of a phone sliced through the night. A young woman, her face etched with worry, clutched the device, her question hanging unspoken in the air. Was her mother still alive? Her father had passed away long ago, leaving only she and her mother. The apartment building loomed before her, a silent, ominous presence. A young man, his face partially obscured by shadow, offered a promise of safety and a plan to find her mother. He would take her somewhere safe, then return. He reassured her, his words a balm to her fear. The weight of the situation pressed down on her, but his calm demeanor offered a fragile hope. With a roar of the engine, he sped away on a powerful motorcycle, leaving the young woman behind, her gaze following him. He considered her naivete, her blind faith in his help. He knew this was a waste of time, but a strange sense of duty compelled him forward. As they rode, he noticed something peculiar about the neighborhood, an unsettling absence of life. A strange quiet hung in the air. The young woman, finally noticing the eerie stillness, voiced her unease. There wasn't a single living soul in sight. He sensed the life force around them, confirming his suspicions. The sounds of struggle nearby drew his attention. The intensity of the conflict escalated. He couldn't wait any longer. He had to act. He urged his companion to watch his back. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows. Dark, spectral figures writhed around him, their forms indistinct yet menacing. The sounds of battle echoed from the Maplewood Hotel, growing ever more intense. A young man, his face etched with worry, spoke to someone unseen. He entered the hotel, the air heavy with an unspoken dread. A receptionist, her expression unsettlingly calm, greeted him. He moved with surprising speed, a question hanging in the air. How was he still alive? The master, in his pursuit of aesthetic perfection, had sacrificed his servants. The young man's companion urged him to find room 707. They had been bound by ritual magic, their souls controlled by their master. The young man questioned why he wasn't attacked. The receptionist revealed a horrifying truth. Everyone was dead. The young man's eyes widened in shock. They had taken the fight to the roof. This was their chance to escape. He dashed through the hotel, his movements swift and determined. He was on a mission. He found a room. The door swung open, revealing a gruesome sight. He leaped, narrowly avoiding a gruesome fate. His eyes reflected the horror he witnessed. The sheer number of bodies was overwhelming. The stench of death filled the air. He sensed them, their presence lingering in every room. Some rooms were even worse. He was recognized. Someone had seen him run into a ghost earlier. He apologized for their death, but it wasn't his fault. He was already dead, but willing to continue. Two lifeless bodies lay before him, their eyes glowing with an eerie green light. A woman's voice, barely a whisper, echoed the plea. Please avenge us. He looked down at them, his expression grim. The weight of their words settled heavily upon him, a promise he couldn't refuse. He vowed to make them pay. The scene shifted, revealing a massacre. Dozens of bodies lay scattered, a testament to the brutal violence that had unfolded. With a surge of righteous fury, he unleashed his power, a destructive force that ripped through the air. The building exploded in a fiery maelstrom, the force of the blast shaking the very foundations. Amidst the chaos, a young man with blue hair reacted, his eyes wide with alarm. What's happening? He quickly assessed the situation, realizing the attack wasn't coming from below, but from above. Who dares interfere? A figure fell from the roof, his voice a pained roar. The young man recognized him instantly. He caught the falling man, a woman with long purple hair, her face etched with pain. She was injured but alive. She gasped, "WH, what are you doing here?" He explained briefly, his words a mix of urgency and determination. His focus was on her survival. She listened, her expression softening slightly. She had a backup plan, but this unexpected help was a welcome surprise. With a surge of power, she unleashed a wave of energy, pushing back against her attackers. She apologized, her voice strained. She had used all her strength, and she was exhausted. The young man understood. He knew she didn't want him to see her secret, her vulnerability. She vanished, leaving only the aftermath of the battle. He was left alone, wondering where she had gone. A figure with glowing red eyes emerged from the shadows, his presence filling the dimly lit space. He smirked, a chilling confidence in his gaze. "You may not realize this," he stated, his voice a low murmur, "but I have eyes and ears everywhere in this hotel." He chuckled, a sound that echoed in the cavernous space. "So let's play a game," the figure announced, beginning a countdown. The numbers hung in the air, each one a beat of a sinister rhythm, as he began to vanish into the swirling dust and debris. A young man, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood defiant amidst swirling darkness. Power crackled in his hands, a storm brewing within him. He scoffed, his voice laced with disdain as he surveyed his surroundings. The accusation stung, but he stood firm. A young woman, unconscious, was cradled in the arms of a knight. The scene was grim, the battlefield a desolate expanse. The knight, desperate, searched for anything to help the injured woman. His concern was palpable. He found something, but it was unexpected. A question hung in the air. How did this end up here? The injured woman was carefully laid down. Her condition was dire, her aura radiating a fierce energy. The knight, having found a solution, offered a pouch of money. He hoped it would be enough to save her. Others questioned the origin of the money. The knight's secret was almost revealed. He explained the source of the funds, revealing his connection to the prince. The weight of his secret was heavy. The money was used, a wave of healing energy emanating from the group. The woman's life hung in the balance. He watched, relieved, as the woman was healed. His thoughts turned to the fickle nature of the battlefield. His actions had consequences. He had made a comeback, but at a cost. His generosity was noted, his reputation restored. The value of his sacrifice was immense. He was lauded for his actions, his fame returning. The title was his once more. A wave of self-doubt washed over him. The weight of his actions settled upon him. The healing was complete. A wave of relief washed over the onlookers as the young man's life force stabilized. He could feel it, her life force blazing. Human healing magic was truly remarkable. With a grateful smile, she was carried away, a promise of a return hanging in the air. The soldiers watched, their awe tinged with a hint of envy. Such generosity deserved admiration. Despite the successful mission, there was still work to be done. He needed to get her out of there. She awoke, her eyes meeting his. A silent understanding passed between them. He had just performed a powerful healing technique, one that only worked on conscious patients. The question hung heavy in the air. She apologized for her initial misjudgment, a weight lifting from her shoulders. The threat of another imminent arrival loomed. Could he still fight? She declared her intent to kill the approaching threat, her resolve unwavering. The title Holy Guardian was bestowed upon him, a testament to his extraordinary healing abilities. A new power surged within him. A young man, radiating power, stood defiant amidst swirling darkness. Beams of light pierced the gloom, illuminating his determined stance. He was already aware of the mastermind behind the recent events. The identity was clear. Shinya's arrival was an unexpected twist. His presence was a surprise, a fortunate coincidence for those who needed his help. One of his companions, however, urged caution, recognizing the scale of the impending battle and the need for a strategic retreat. His talent, it turned out, lay not in combat, but in healing. Left alone, he prepared to face the challenge. A betrayal was revealed. A trusted ally had been waiting for this moment, playing a long game. The ensuing confrontation was swift and brutal. A clash of powers erupted. The force of the attack sent the healer hurtling across the room. The sheer power unleashed surpassed his expectations. He had transcended his limits. A wave of energy surged, shattering the very foundations of the building. The destruction was widespread, a testament to the raw power unleashed. The scale of the destruction was almost unbelievable. One observer noted the extent of the injuries sustained earlier, confirming the severity of the situation. The previous attempts on Shunye's life had all failed, highlighting his exceptional abilities. The extent of the destruction caused by Shunye's actions was staggering, defying belief. Despite the injuries, a surge of excitement coursed through him. The battle had invigorated him. A guttural laugh ripped through the air, echoing in the swirling gray smoke. Crimson stained the young man's lips, his eyes blazing with an unnatural light. The words hung in the air, a chilling promise. This passionate embrace would continue. Generosity, it seemed, had its limits. The soldiers grumbled amongst themselves, their unease palpable despite the king's lavish gift. Their surprise was evident. The king's actions, while seemingly generous, held a hidden depth. He had bestowed blessings upon his friends, each tailored to their needs. A wave of power seemed to emanate from him. They were astonished by the revelation. The combined effect of these blessings was far greater than the sum of their parts. The Holy Guardian spell, a powerful amplification, was activated. Its effects would last for 3 hours. A hush fell over the group. The use of such a spell without permission was a grave offense. One soldier, however, saw this as a gesture of friendship, a sign of goodwill from the young man. He quietly pocketed some of the gold, hoping the secret would remain safe. A flurry of motion. A sword flashed, leaving trails of light in its wake. The speed and power of the attacks increased dramatically, exceeding expectations. A low, ominous sound resonated, a sign of growing power. She sensed the source of the power surge, a growing unease settling in her stomach. The source of the power was revealed, a wave of tormented souls. She turned, her back to the horrifying spectacle, a grim determination etched on her face. The battle raged, a whirlwind of chaotic energy. A young man, his eyes blazing with an unexpected power, stood defiant amidst the storm. He surveyed the scene, a grim determination etched on his face. A voice, calm yet chilling, cut through the din. "I prepared a gift for you." The words hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the violence unfolding around him. A gash bled across his cheek, a testament to the fight's ferocity. "They're singing for us," he muttered, a chilling realization dawning. His eyes widened, the horror of the situation crashing down upon him. He had stumbled into something far more sinister than he could have imagined. "Oops," he whispered, the word barely audible above the cacophony. The scene shifted, focusing on a chilling detail. A field of roses, each petal stained crimson, pulsed with a dark energy. A wedding hymn, distorted and macabre, echoed in the air. The roses were not merely decorative. They were a horrifying symbol of the curse that bound the tormented souls. "This is our eternal curse," a voice rasped, filled with despair. He recoiled, the weight of the revelation pressing down on him. The blood-red vines tightened their grip, pulling him deeper into the heart of the nightmare. A single, crimson heart pulsed at the center of it all. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows. The air crackled with unseen energy. He and his companions were attempting a daring escape, their urgency palpable. The escape was complicated by the fact that they were being pursued. Suddenly, a chilling realization dawned on them. The corpses surrounding them began chanting in unison, their incantations weaving a sinister spell. One of the group, realizing the danger, urged immediate flight, warning of a powerful, blood-fueled curse. He located a specific spot, a place of power, and declared it their only hope. The young man, his face grim, prepared to test the limits of his abilities, a desperate gamble in the face of overwhelming odds. The horrifying cries of the undead echoed around them, a testament to the dark magic at play. Meanwhile, a sinister figure, his face partially obscured, manipulated crimson threads, weaving a deadly trap. The crimson threads, imbued with dark power, snaked towards their target, a wedding gown of death. The threads moved with terrifying speed, ensnaring their prey. A woman with purple hair, wielding a sword, found herself entangled in the deadly threads. Her blade was trapped, the threads binding her weapon and her. The silver-haired man, with chilling precision, offered her a ring, a macabre wedding proposal. He slipped the ring on her finger with impossible speed, sealing her fate. With a burst of energy, she fought back, severing the threads. She stood defiant, her eyes burning with determination, ready to face whatever came next. A hidden blade flashed, a surprise attack. The opponent smirked, a cruel twist of fate. He felt the power of the endless blood fiend curses coursing through him, a surge of dark energy. The arduous journey had reached its end, the fruit of victory within reach. Or so it seemed. But the opponent's confidence was not absolute. A shadow of doubt lingered. With a swift motion, a counterattack began, a dance of blades under the stormy sky. The clash of steel echoed, sparks flying as the battle intensified. A gasp escaped the attacker's lips. This was no ordinary opponent. The attacker lamented their lack of the divine blade, a crucial element in the fight. The world was a tempest of thunder and rain, a cruel twist of fate indeed. With a defiant cry, they vowed to fight to the bitter end. The battle raged on, a whirlwind of energy and skill. The attacker pressed their advantage, relishing the fight. A dark ritual began, a sacrifice of blood to summon a monstrous entity. The summoner called out, their voice echoing with dark intent. The monstrous entity emerged, promising eternal slumber. A horrified onlooker realized the gravity of the situation. A monster had been unleashed. The monstrous shadow loomed, its many eyes burning with malevolent intent. A defiant figure, sword raised, met its onslaught head-on, declaring, "I don't have time to dodge." Suddenly, the scene shifted. A young man with vibrant blue hair, bathed in stage light, addressed an unseen crowd with an energetic greeting. "My friends in the audience, how are you all doing tonight?" A young man, seemingly radiating power, stood defiant amidst swirling darkness. Around him, shadowy figures writhed, their forms indistinct yet menacing. The monstrous entity grew, its many eyes glowing with malevolent intent. This was no ordinary foe. This was a being of immense power. A woman with purple hair, her face etched with grim determination, braced herself. She knew, with chilling certainty, that she didn't have time to dodge. A sudden, jarring interruption. A cheerful voice, completely out of place, boomed from the unseen audience. The woman's eyes widened in alarm. A wave of fear washed over her as she sensed a new threat. The monstrous forms multiplied, their screams echoing the woman's growing terror. She desperately tried to communicate, to find an ally. Pain, agony, the weight of despair threatened to crush her. She felt herself slipping into the abyss. He cried out for help, his blood fiend curse interrupted, leaving him vulnerable and terrified. She moved with lethal grace, her blade a blur as she engaged the enemy. The clash of steel echoed through the air. A surge of energy erupted from her, a blinding flash of light and power. The force of the attack was undeniable. The impact sent him reeling, a pained gasp escaping his lips. He was clearly wounded, his strength waning. A brutal strike. A torrent of blood erupted from the wound, staining the ground crimson. She stood over him, her sword dripping with blood. The battle was over, but the victory fell hollow. His laughter echoed, a chilling sound that belied his apparent defeat. He was far from finished. He unleashed another wave of dark energy, a desperate attempt to turn the tide. He He was not ready to yield. She was shocked. Her attack had failed to finish him. The armor he wore seemed to absorb the blow. The ground trembled, a dark vortex opening before a young man with purple hair. Corpses nearby began chanting a morbid birthday song. He ignored the unsettling spectacle, determined to continue the ritual. A sudden interruption shattered the focus. A man with vibrant pink hair appeared, cheerfully suggesting they all sing happy birthday. Another man, his face etched with frustration, reacted with disbelief to this bizarre turn of events. Meanwhile, spectral figures sang the birthday song, their voices echoing through the night. The pink-haired man's jovial demeanor was a stark contrast to the grim reality of the situation. With a furious roar, the man with silver hair unleashed his power, the ground cracking beneath his feet. He was pursuing Shunyi, but another presence was sensed, a familiar threat. Shunyi, undeterred, continued his macabre task, summoning his deceased friend's favorite songs. He was fully embracing his new, terrifying power, despite the inherent risks. The battle raged on, the clash of powers threatening to tear the very fabric of reality. The silver-haired man found his target, his pursuit relentless. One ally urged Shunyi to flee, while another prepared to face the oncoming threat. The silver-haired man vowed to slaughter Shunyi's family, a chilling promise. A title card, showcasing a young man bathed in ethereal light, surrounded by shadowy figures. The air crackles with unseen energy. He stood, defiant, amidst the chaos. The murmurs of doubt from his companions were barely audible above the din. But a chilling realization settled upon him. Escape was the priority, not a confrontation. He proposed a deal, a desperate gamble for survival. He held a glowing blue orb, the symbol of their agreement. A skull, glowing ominously, pulsed with dark energy. Help was needed and quickly. The plan was risky, but time was running out. He needed to buy some time. Fear gnawed at him, the weight of his impending death heavy on his shoulders. The consequences of failure were dire. The contract was signed, a binding agreement forged in desperation. He was urged to proceed cautiously, a robotic approach being the safest option. He agreed, the need to regain his power overriding his pride. He focused, reallocating his energy, preparing for the ritual. The incantation began, a low hum filling the air. The dark ritual commenced, a gateway to the underworld opening before him. He roared the final words of the incantation, his voice echoing with power. The ritual began. Murmurs of the dark activated. Shadows deep within the abyss of the underworld stirred, preparing for a grand feast of souls. With the skeletal spirit's will, a dark altar formed. A young man watched, his eyes blazing with a chilling determination. The incantation worked, the soul fires ignited. He knew this was only the first step, but a crucial one. Escape was his immediate priority. He followed the spectral guides through the veil of life and death, towards the roof where the soul fire converged. The young man's actions enraged a powerful entity. A furious roar echoed through the building. "You little bastard! What are you doing?" He was already here. The entity, a being of immense power, had arrived. With a surge of dark energy, he launched himself forward, a blur of motion. But he wouldn't get away. The entity pursued relentlessly. Meanwhile, another figure, a woman with purple hair, engaged in a fierce battle, her movements a whirlwind of energy. Her strikes were powerful, but her opponent was focused solely on the young man, ignoring her attacks. The young man's pursuer was relentless, his attacks growing more ferocious. He used the momentum of each strike to close the distance. The woman's attacks were ineffective. Her opponent was too focused on his prey. He was closing in, his speed increasing with every passing moment. The young man was cornered, his escape seemingly impossible. A desperate prayer escaped his lips. "We call upon the mercy of the Most High." A young man stood bathed in an ethereal light, spectral figures swirling around him, their silent screams echoing in the unseen void. He moved with impossible speed, a blur of motion as he evaded a crimson strike aimed at his heart. The attack was swift, brutal, and clearly intended to end his life. His pursuer, a figure cloaked in shadow, pressed the attack, relentless in their pursuit. The words, "You have nowhere to run," hung in the air, a chilling promise. Another figure, this one radiating a malevolent red energy, launched themselves into the fray, their movements a whirlwind of destructive force. The silver-haired man, his face a mask of cold fury, spoke of a dark mother of bones, a name that sent a shiver down the spines of those who heard it. He continued, his voice dripping with menace, referring to the Ghoul King, a title that spoke of unimaginable power and horror. Two figures clashed, their blades meeting in a shower of sparks. One, a young man with blue hair, was clearly outmatched, yet he fought with desperate courage. The other, a woman with purple hair, watched the battle unfold, her expression a mixture of concern and grim determination. A surge of energy erupted from the young man, a blinding flash of light that illuminated the decaying chamber. He called upon the spirits of the dead, his plea a desperate gamble for the power needed to survive. The dead answered his call, their spectral forms coalescing into a torrent of ethereal energy. He urged his allies to work together, his voice strained but resolute. The threat was too great for any one of them to face alone. The silver-haired man lunged, his attack vicious and unrelenting. The young man, despite his newfound power, was clearly struggling. He roared, "To kill you!" His voice filled with rage and desperation. Death seemed imminent. The purple-haired woman moved to intervene, but she was too late. The silver-haired man's attack landed with brutal force. The silver-haired man staggered back, his body racked with pain. He had underestimated his opponent, and now he paid the price. Shen Yi, in a desperate bid for power, summoned lost souls. The spectral energy crackled around him, a desperate gamble in the face of overwhelming odds. A powerful ally appeared, her violet hair a stark contrast to the swirling blue energy. She offered her aid, a silent pact forged in the heat of battle. He roared his intent, his voice echoing the fury that consumed him. This was not merely a fight, it was a quest for vengeance. The faces of his fallen comrades flashed before his eyes, fueling his rage. Their deaths would not be in vain. The power surged, a wave of spectral energy emanating from him. He channeled the rage of the dead, transforming it into a weapon. His resolve hardened. He prepared to unleash his full power. The weight of his grief and fury coalesced into a single, terrifying purpose. His opponent, a skeletal figure, laughed, unfazed by the display of power. Death, it seemed, held no fear for him. With a swift, brutal strike, he sent his enemy reeling. The clash of power sent shockwaves through the air. The skeletal figure's weapon, a glowing sword, crackled with dark energy. It was a weapon forged in the fires of the underworld. The force of the blow shattered the stone beneath them. The earth trembled under the weight of their conflict. His ally watched, stunned by the raw power on display. She had underestimated the depth of his rage. The skeletal figure coughed, a sound like grinding bones. Despite the injury, he remained defiant. He vowed to end the fight quickly, his words laced with grim determination. There would be no mercy. The moment arrived. The weight of the battle, the ghosts of the past, and the promise of vengeance converged. A final, devastating blow landed. The skeletal figure cried out in pain, his reign of terror seemingly at an end. He stood victorious, but weary. The cost of his victory was etched upon his face, a testament to the battle's ferocity. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral forms. The air crackled with unseen energy. He watched, a grim determination etched on his face, as a colossal skeletal figure unleashed a devastating attack. The words, "Finish him," echoed in the air. The skeletal figure raised its weapon, a massive, glowing sword, preparing for another strike. This was his trump card. The young man fell, crimson threads snaking across the ground like a macabre tapestry. His body lay still. He reacted instantly, his own power surging. A counterattack began. The skeletal figure sneered, unimpressed by the young man's desperate attempt. "Ah, so these threads are the big power you're so proud of?" it mocked. With a contemptuous swipe, the skeletal figure easily cut through the young man's defense. Pathetic, it hissed. A silver-haired man watched from afar, a smirk playing on his lips. He didn't even need to lift a finger to deal with such an insignificant opponent. The skeletal figure prepared for a final, devastating blow. Countless lost souls wailed in its ears, shackled for far too long. It was time, the moment to set them free. The words "resurrection of the dead" appeared as a surge of green energy erupted from the skeletal figure. The rain intensified as the dead rose, their eyes glowing with an eerie green light. Panic spread. The silver-haired man watched the chaos unfold, his expression unreadable. He had underestimated his opponent. The skeletal figure, now surrounded by the resurrected dead, stood amidst the storm, its power amplified. "Spirits," it whispered. The hour of vengeance was at hand. The silver-haired man cursed, realizing he had been stripped of his magic. He couldn't control the resurrected. A figure, crimson staining his clothes, collapsed amidst the rubble. A red line, taut as a bowstring, snaked away from him into the shadows. He launched himself upward, a desperate, almost balletic leap, the red line trailing behind. His pursuer, a skeletal form, watched him go, a question forming in the empty sockets of its skull. The escape was short-lived. A searing pain racked the fleeing man's body, as if his very essence was being consumed. The skeletal figure loomed, explaining that this was merely a temporary soul-suppressing spell, causing no lasting harm. Below, a sea of faces, contorted in agony, rose to meet him. The spell's effect was spreading. The man, now suspended upside down, felt the chilling truth of the skeletal figure's words. He was becoming one of them, his warm flesh a tempting feast for the ravenous horde. Another victim, eyes glowing with an unnatural light, joined the ranks of the undead. The horrifying transformation continued, each new victim adding to the growing army of the damned. A voice, filled with despair, cried out against the tide of vengeance, a tide that never truly recedes. Another victim, consumed by terror, begged for salvation, offering everything they possessed. A young man, eyes wide with determination, vowed to sacrifice everything to stop this. A wave of dark energy erupted from him, a desperate counterattack against the encroaching darkness. A being of immense power, seemingly appeased by the sacrifice, acknowledged the offering. The being descended, accepting the sacrifice, and the fate of the world hung precariously in the balance. The defeated antagonist, a horrifying figure of immense power, thrashed in agony. His voice, a guttural whisper, echoed the question that consumed him. Why had he been rejected? A young man with vibrant blue hair, his face etched with concern, urgently directed his companions. The skeletal figure was beginning a spell, and swift action was needed to stop it. He lunged forward, his blade a silver streak against the stormy sky. The skeletal figure, now partially animated, met the attack with a defiant roar. Vengeance, the young man vowed, would be his. A blinding flash of golden energy erupted from the skeletal figure, sending the young man reeling. A warning cry pierced the air, a desperate plea for him to take cover from the unpredictable blast. A young man, radiating power, stood amidst swirling darkness. Beams of light pierced the gloom, illuminating his determined face. He gripped a glowing blade, his eyes fixed on a shadowy figure looming before him. The air crackled with anticipation. With a fierce cry, he lunged forward, the blade a silver streak against the darkness. His opponent, a skeletal figure, raised its own weapon in defense. Despite the ferocity of the attack, the skeletal figure remained unyielding. A dark power seemed to shield it from harm. The battle raged, a whirlwind of blows and sparks. The young man, though skilled, found himself outmatched. He dodged a bone-shattering blow, his breath catching in his throat. He knew he needed a new strategy. Another shadowy figure appeared, a clone of the first. The young man's situation grew dire. He called out to an ally, urging them to use a powerful attack. The rain lashed down, obscuring the battlefield. The young man unleashed a devastating attack, a whirlwind of energy slicing through the air. His opponent staggered. The force of the blow sent shockwaves through the area, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room, a woman watched the battle unfold on a screen. Her expression was one of grim determination. A warning cry pierced the air. A new threat emerged from the shadows, its presence chilling. The skeletal figure grew larger, its power amplified. A wave of dark energy emanated from it. The young man realized the true nature of the threat. He had underestimated his opponent's abilities. The skeletal figure lunged, its attack swift and deadly. The young man barely managed to evade it. More shadowy figures appeared, intent on claiming the fallen warrior's body. The battle was far from over. A shadowy figure, its form barely discernible, lunged from the shattered window. The attack was swift, brutal. Xiao Mingyu, startled, reacted instinctively, his voice a mixture of surprise and alarm. He watched, momentarily stunned, as the skeletal entity, its presence both terrifying and awe-inspiring, emerged from the building's remains. A wave of unease washed over him, a chilling premonition that he was not alone in this desolate place. He considered his options, the urgency of the situation pressing down on him. A suggestion formed in his mind. He turned to the intercom, his voice calm despite the chaos unfolding around him. The skeletal figure loomed, its movements slow and deliberate, a stark contrast to the frenetic energy of the battle. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a report came in, painting a picture of confusion and uncertainty. He analyzed the situation, his thoughts sharp and focused despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. A notification appeared on his phone, a message from Xiao Mingyu, breaking through the tension. He stared at the screen, his expression a mixture of shock and dawning comprehension. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. Power crackled in his outstretched hand. He stared, aghast, at his phone. A message had arrived, the implications of which were clearly unsettling. The scene shifted to a young woman, her expression thoughtful as she considered a question about her ideal partner. A woman's voice, warm yet slightly insistent, offered unsolicited advice about the young man's burgeoning popularity. Her thoughts drifted to a childhood memory, a poignant recollection of the young man's kindness. She mused on the possibility of a romantic relationship, her heart yearning for someone like him. A man's foot, clad in dark shoes, appeared on a screen, the identity of its owner a mystery. A conversation unfolded, revealing a plan to orchestrate an accident involving the young man. Elsewhere, a discussion took place, expressing concern for the young woman's safety and well-being. The plan was finalized. The young man's life was deemed expendable. The young man, alone, received a message, a chilling prelude to the events to come. He pondered various scenarios, his mind racing to understand the threat against him. He considered several possibilities, each more unsettling than the last, as he tried to make sense of the danger. His realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. The truth was far more absurd than he could have ever imagined. The rain lashed down, mirroring the despair etched onto the faces of the grieving crowd. Their words, a mixture of accusation and gratitude, hung heavy in the air. They held him responsible for their loss, yet also thanked him for his attempt at vengeance. He stood amidst them, the weight of their sorrow pressing down. A single word escaped his lips, a barely audible whisper, "I." Their pleas for peace and a dignified afterlife echoed in his ears, a stark contrast to the brutal reality of their deaths. He had failed to protect them, and the guilt gnawed at him. A fierce determination hardened his gaze. He vowed vengeance, a promise whispered on the wind, a solemn oath to uncover the mastermind behind this tragedy and exact retribution. He was too weak, he admitted to himself, barely able to keep pace with the shadows that had pursued him. Yet, he had forced his protector to remain behind, shielding him from the onslaught. Their gratitude, though heartfelt, couldn't mask the underlying sorrow. The death of the demon, while a victory, was a bittersweet one, leaving behind a void that would take time to fill. They offered their final blessings, their hopes for his future intertwined with their own peaceful rest. The weight of their expectations settled upon him, a heavy mantle of responsibility. Their thanks echoed in his ears, a chorus of gratitude and farewell. He was forever indebted to them, to their sacrifice, to their unwavering faith in him. The spell binding the fallen was broken. They returned to the underworld, their tormented souls finally at peace. He stood alone, the rain washing away the blood, but not the memories. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant against a backdrop of swirling darkness. The air crackled with unseen energy. He listened intently, his expression unreadable, as a voice recounted a tale of impending catastrophe. The gravity of the situation settled upon him. The potential devastation was immense, a city's fate hanging in the balance. A woman, her face etched with concern, offered words of comfort and a promise of future strength. Hope flickered in the gloom. He questioned the events, piecing together fragments of a complex puzzle, still unsure of the full picture. The weight of his involvement pressed down. He felt the intricate web of deceit closing in. He was reminded of his family's standing, a stark contrast to the powerful families involved in the unfolding crisis. The consequences of inaction loomed large. Justice, or the lack thereof, would soon be served. He felt a surge of anger and disbelief at the suggestion of a mere slap on the wrist for such heinous acts. He was incredulous. The scale of the betrayal and the casual disregard for human life were staggering. The price of truth was steep, a sacrifice he was willing to pay, despite the overwhelming odds. The aftermath of the conflict was devastating, a grim tableau of death and destruction. He contemplated the immense power he possessed, the potential to exact revenge, but the cost was too high. He wrestled with the moral implications of his actions, questioning whether he could justify such widespread destruction. The enormity of the loss weighed heavily on him. Friends, family, and countless innocents were gone. He was left with a profound sense of injustice, the realization that this was all a twisted game played at his expense. Shen Yi, a young man in a hoodie, stood amidst the rain, his voice ringing with righteous fury. The weight of countless lives lost fueled his rage. He wouldn't let those responsible escape unscathed. A blinding flash of blue energy erupted from his hand, a surge of power that sliced through the rain-soaked cityscape. The energy beam continued its relentless path, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. He moved with a swift, calculated precision, each strike aimed to shatter the stone structures around him. The impact of his attack sent debris raining down, a chaotic ballet of destruction. With a powerful thrust, he sent a large chunk of debris flying, the force of the blow echoing through the air. His companion, a skeletal figure, observed the scene with a detached amusement, commenting on the young man's actions. The skeletal figure questioned Shen Yi about his plan, prompting him to explain his reasoning. Shen Yi, however, dismissed the notion of a blood feud, revealing that the conflict was a misunderstanding. He argued that life is about happiness, not endless conflict, a sentiment that was met with skepticism by the skeletal figure. Shen Yi, undeterred, declared his intention to exact revenge for the innocent lives lost, his resolve hardening. He then leaped onto his motorcycle, a spectral figure appearing beside him. A young girl watched from afar, her thoughts reflecting on Shen Yi's growth and maturity. The rain continued to fall on the city, a somber backdrop to the events that had unfolded. Crimson energy crackled around her, swirling like a tempest in the downpour. Each arc of power seemed to pulse with raw emotion, mirroring the turmoil within. She paused, the vibrant energy fading as quickly as it appeared. A wave of weariness washed over her, the memory of his childish naivete, now replaced by a chilling realization. He'd become even more reckless. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows. Power crackled in his hands. Rain lashed against the city street. A lone figure, a young woman, watched the downpour. She scoffed, deeming a recent event foolish. But then, a nagging thought surfaced. Should she visit him? Her companion argued against it, pointing out the risks and the recent near-miss with her cover being blown. The woman, unfazed, stood firm. Her identity was at stake, but a promise was a promise. She demanded something from her companion, a favor to erase all traces of a recent fight. The conversation shifted to another witness, a girl with a sword, and the potential threat she posed. A monstrous, shadowy figure loomed over the city, its eyes burning with malevolent energy. It was time to work. The woman prepared for action. A surge of crimson energy erupted, engulfing the area in a fiery maelstrom. The monstrous entity was subdued. The woman, breathless but victorious, contacted her sister. Her sister, Incheon, was at a party and needed help. The choice was clear, noodles or the party. She chose noodles, a promise kept, but she wondered if skipping the party was wise. Her sister thrived in such social settings, unlike her. The contrast was stark. Someone called her useless. The irony was not lost on her. Rain continued to fall, a somber curtain closing on the events of the night. A crimson torrent cascaded from above, a deluge of blood staining the ground below. Within a blood-filled bathtub, a figure writhed, their body contorted in silent agony. A guttural scream ripped through the air as the figure thrashed violently, their body consumed by the crimson tide. Submerged in a bloody bath, only the figure's upper torso remained visible, their face a mask of pain and disbelief. Slowly, the figure's body began to rise from the bloody water, their limbs reaching out as if grasping for something. The figure, now partially submerged, gasped, a question forming on their lips. I'm alive again. A voice, cold and dismissive, cut through the silence. Fool. The figure, still weak, acknowledged their debt, stating that the required price had been paid. A voice challenged the figure, questioning their audacity in withdrawing at the last moment. The figure, now fully emerged, was consumed by a surge of power, their body convulsing. The figure, overwhelmed by the power, collapsed, their body racked with pain and confusion. A voice, unseen, apologized for their intrusion, explaining that they had sensed no one else nearby. The unseen entity revealed that they had initially found the figure's world weak and uninteresting. The entity continued, explaining that the figure's power was a mere flicker, easily overlooked. The entity expressed surprise at the figure's unexpected strength and the theft of the cursed statue's power. Zhao Yibing appeared, her expression unreadable, as she stepped through a doorway. A young woman, her face etched with disbelief, watched as a figure, previously thought vanquished, reformed before her. Impossible, she whispered, the words barely audible above the crackling energy that surrounded them. The man, his body still bearing the wounds of their last encounter, looked up, a flicker of defiance in his eyes. No, wait, he began, but his words were cut short by a surge of dark power emanating from the woman. The power intensified, coalescing into a terrifying form. From the woman's perspective, a figure of immense power emerged, its presence filling her with both awe and dread. It's you? Great being, she breathed, the realization dawning on her, as the true nature of her opponent became clear. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and monstrous figures. His power, barely contained, pulsed with an otherworldly energy. The scene shifted to a woman, her face etched with determination, kneeling before a shadowy figure. Her words, a prayer or a plea, hung heavy in the air. The shadowy figure, its features obscured, responded with chilling indifference. Its gaze, cold and calculating, fell upon the kneeling woman. Another woman, her expression a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, observed from a distance. She pondered the power displayed, a silent question hanging in the air. The kneeling woman, her voice strained, explained the immense effort required to bring about this event. The cost, it seemed, was high. The shadowy figure, impatient, issued a curt command. The stakes were clear. The hunt was on. A monstrous creature, its form barely visible in the shadows, obeyed instantly. Its hunger was palpable, a terrifying promise of violence. The creature's terrifying roar echoed through the night, a chilling testament to the power unleashed. The hunt had begun. Meanwhile, a young man sped through the rain-slicked city streets on a motorcycle, oblivious to the unfolding horror. He was startled by a sudden, intense noise, a sound that cut through the night's din. His attention was immediately drawn to it. He explained the situation, his voice laced with a mixture of apology and concern. The urgency in his tone was unmistakable. He reflected on the events, a wave of self-reproach washing over him. The weight of his past actions pressed heavily on his conscience. A phone call interrupted his thoughts, a familiar number appearing on the screen. He hesitated before answering. He answered, his voice cautious. The call was from someone he knew, someone important. The caller identified himself, his voice carrying a hint of concern. He had news, and it was urgent. The conversation continued, revealing a long-forgotten memory. The past, it seemed, was about to catch up with him. Shunyi paced, phone pressed to his ear, the weight of his family's expectations heavy on his shoulders. His uncle's voice, though calm, carried an undercurrent of threat. An apology was demanded, a sacrifice required to appease powerful families. He sighed, the gravity of the situation settling upon him. The consequences of his actions were far-reaching, threatening to engulf not only himself but his entire family. A stark image flashed before his eyes, a body sprawled on the cold, hard ground, a grim reminder of the price of his defiance. His death, he realized, would be deemed justified. He continued the call, his voice tight with barely controlled frustration. He hadn't intentionally offended anyone, yet he was being forced to atone for the sins of others. The conversation ended, leaving him feeling betrayed and alone. His family, he realized with a bitter taste in his mouth, had readily sacrificed him for their own gain. He was interrupted by a question from his uncle, a pointed inquiry about his mother's request for medicine. It was a thinly veiled attempt to gauge his willingness to comply. A polite inquiry, a seemingly innocuous question, hung in the air. But beneath the surface, a challenge simmered. He received a message, a curt challenge from an unknown number. The sender's arrogance was palpable, their threat implicit. Shinya's frustration boiled over. He knew his uncle was sacrificing him, and the realization fueled his defiance. Another call came in, this time a video call from an unexpected source. The interruption, however, was far from welcome. The screen displayed a racy invitation to a bikini party. The jarring contrast between the frivolous invitation and his grim circumstances only heightened his tension. A young man, cloaked in shadows, stood defiant amidst a swirling vortex of dark energy. Around him, spectral figures writhed, their forms barely discernible in the gloom. He was surrounded by a group of women, their laughter echoing around him. Their attention was clearly focused on him, their words a mixture of admiration and playful teasing. One woman, particularly striking, leaned in, her words a suggestive invitation. The scene was vibrant, a stark contrast to the darkness of the previous image. But he remained unmoved, his gaze distant, preoccupied. He politely declined their advances, explaining his current predicament. A phone rang, interrupting the moment. He answered, his expression hardening as he listened. He explained the situation to the caller, his tone conveying a sense of urgency and frustration. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon him. A digital clock ticked down the seconds, a stark reminder of the impending deadline. The pressure mounted. He was presented with a unique opportunity to gain a hidden ability. The conditions were clearly stated, leaving no room for misinterpretation. He reflected on his current situation, acknowledging the limitations of his current power. He knew he needed more to succeed. He resolved to seize this opportunity, determined to unlock the hidden potential within himself. His focus sharpened. The clock ticked closer to midnight. A mysterious door loomed before him, its ominous glow hinting at the power within. He approached cautiously, a sense of anticipation and trepidation mixing within him. The moment of truth was near. He stepped into a dark forest, the air thick with an unnatural energy. A skeletal figure emerged from the shadows. The skeletal figure attacked, its movements swift and deadly. He reacted instinctively, his newfound power surging through him. He managed to defeat the creature, but the encounter left him shaken. He realized the true cost of his newfound power. He and the skeletal figure parted ways, each heading towards their own uncertain future. A new chapter had begun. A young man, his face etched with gratitude, received a small, glowing blue orb. He'd helped someone powerful, and in return, he was given a token of remembrance. He bid farewell, the weight of his recent ordeal heavy on his shoulders. The forest loomed, dark and foreboding. Alone, he wondered about his survival chances in the wild. His recent ally had only been with him for a few days. As he ventured deeper, a chilling presence filled the air. A skeletal figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing ominously. A surge of dark energy erupted from the ground, a violent display of power that shook the very trees around him. He was startled by the sudden, unexpected power surge. The forest seemed to writhe around him. The young man braced himself, recognizing the voice of a powerful being. It was a voice he knew well, but this time, it sounded different. He was surprised by the destructive power, realizing he was in over his head. He considered retreating, but the consequences were too great. A warning flashed in his mind. He'd been spotted. The stakes were higher than he'd initially thought. He knew the risks of retreat, but a sense of loyalty compelled him forward. He had a friend in need. Despite his hesitation, he pressed on, driven by a sense of duty and friendship. The forest floor was treacherous. He was suddenly beset by a wave of skeletal spears, erupting from the earth. He barely managed to dodge. A dark, shadowy cloak billowed, revealing a powerful, skeletal figure wielding immense power. The skeletal figure, a formidable foe, prepared for battle. It was a powerful display of dark magic. Another figure, a young man, stood defiant against the onslaught. He was ready to face whatever came next. A young man, bathed in an ethereal purple light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. The air crackled with unseen energy. A skeletal hand, impossibly large, reached down from the darkness above. Below, a skull, seemingly sentient, observed the scene. He appeared suddenly, a figure cloaked in shadow, his voice a furious whisper. "What did you do to my brother?" The shadowed figure addressed him, explaining that humans don't typically call the undead brother, and that past actions had consequences. He scoffed, admitting his brother had saved his life, and that he intended to overthrow the human empire. Two figures, observing from afar, questioned the audacity of the plan, but one suggested checking something first. The shadowed figure revealed a crystal, claiming it was proof of their infiltration of the human high command. A regal figure, draped in dark purple robes, sat upon a throne of ice, holding a medal. The text described its significance. The medal was awarded to the boy who lived, Prince Norton, heir to the Holy Amethyst Empire. A skeletal figure, eyes glowing, expressed disbelief at the boy's claim, demanding an explanation. A surge of dark energy erupted, the word baleful star appearing amidst the chaos. He scoffed at the idea of assassinating the emperor, highlighting the power that titles bring. The dark energy intensified, the same words appearing again, emphasizing the plan's audacity. He continued, explaining that even without titles, Fern and Skinner were powerful, and that a lie, repeated enough, could become believable. The skeletal figure, now more clearly visible, agreed, adding that a letter of recommendation from Prince Norton would further their deception. A young man, his face etched with disbelief, stared at the script. The handwriting was identical to that of Prince Norton's directives. It was authentic. He was clearly the target of this investigation. The skeletal figure, its eyes burning with an eerie green light, loomed over him. There was nothing to hide. The truth was about to be revealed. A burst of laughter, unrestrained and cruel, echoed through the forest. The young man's face contorted in pain. The skeletal figure's grip tightened, its amusement growing with each passing moment. What was so funny? He had clearly been the only one to escape the elf's trap, a fact that infuriated his pursuers. The skull at his feet served as a grim reminder of the mission's failure. The young man's captors were far from pleased. His actions had caused a ripple effect throughout the human military camps, and they were not going to let him get away with it. He had shown up in the elven village, a fact known to everyone. A letter of recommendation, written by the prince himself, added another layer of intrigue to the situation. The skeletal figure challenged him, daring him to investigate further. The young man, despite his fear, felt a surge of defiance. His expression hardened. He was tired of being exploited by the capitalists. The skeletal figure, confused, inquired about the meaning of capitalists. The young man attempted to explain. He explained the harsh realities of his labor, highlighting the unfairness of the system. His words resonated with the skeletal figure. The skeletal figure was impressed by his explanation, praising his insight. The young man's perspective was unique. The skeletal figure's face showed the effects of the torture inflicted upon him by the capitalists. The young man pressed further, wanting to understand the depth of the skeletal figure's hatred. The skeletal figure lamented the inhumanity of the 996 work schedule. The young man, now reflecting on his own grueling work schedule, understood the skeletal figure's pain. He recounted his ordeal, a grim expression etched onto his face. "That's pretty rough," he muttered, the weight of his words heavy in the air. The details emerged. Work from midnight to midnight, 7 days a week, no breaks. They call it 007. Above him, skeletal figures watched, their silent judgment palpable. Then a large skeletal being descended, offering comfort. "Let me give you a hum, man," it offered, a surprising gentleness in its tone. A grateful acceptance followed. "Thanks." A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amid swirling shadows and grotesque figures. His power, raw and untamed, pulsed around him. He remembered that day, a desperate struggle against the biting cold and gnawing hunger. A single box of matches was all he possessed. The announcement came as a shock. He was to be the central figure in a propaganda war against the undead. He vehemently rejected the title of the Little Match Boy, a moniker that felt both absurd and insulting given his recent ordeal. A spectral figure offered comfort, a hug that transcended the boundaries of life and death. The truth about the elven high priest's plot was revealed, exonerating Fern from any wrongdoing. He weighed the risks. Dealing with Fern would anger the higher-ups, but ignoring the situation was equally dangerous. Saving the boy had been costly, but he wouldn't have it any other way. The spectral figure bestowed a medal upon him, a symbol of honor and recognition for his bravery. The spectral figure expressed pride in both the boy and his actions. Two figures left, leaving the boy and his savior behind. The boy's savior questioned his decision to leave the unconscious figure. The savior reassured himself that his power remained intact, despite his injuries. A conversation ensued about the differences between their worlds, touching upon the concept of capitalism. The chilling truth hung in the air, a stark contrast to the boy's naivete. He simply didn't grasp the realities of their world, the casual brutality of the undead. A sudden, sharp reminder jolted him back to the present. He'd been spotted again. The order came swiftly, cutting through the forest's quiet. He froze, the weight of his situation pressing down. Accusations flew, painting him as a traitor. The knights, righteous and unforgiving, surrounded him. He recognized one of the figures, a familiar face amidst the hostility. It was him, Prince Norton, his expression grim, demanded answers. The boy's alliance with the undead was undeniable. He introduced his companion, Fern, a field operative from the undead army's 5th Brigade. The prince's skepticism was palpable. The prince's disbelief was understandable. A human making a pact with the undead was unheard of. But the evidence was irrefutable. The boy, now known as Prince Norton, had already shared crucial intelligence with the Shadowhand Brotherhood. The prince's advisor, highly sensitive to corrupted souls, sensed the boy's purity. His anger was righteous, not undead-induced. The undead's harsh treatment of the boy explained his difficult situation. A powerful blast of energy erupted. The ordeal had left its mark, a testament to his resilience. He had survived 996. A young man, radiating power, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. His very presence seemed to challenge the darkness. The skull, etched with the number 996, bore silent witness to untold suffering. It was a grim symbol of relentless exploitation. He explained his plight, the injustices he'd endured. The sheer volume of his suffering was staggering. A skeletal figure, wielding a hammer, lamented his own powerless position within a system that ground him down. An elder, his face etched with wisdom, explained the inherent unfairness of the system. The undead, tireless and ever-working, were the perfect victims. The relentless schedule was described. 9-hour workdays, 6 days a week, with minimal breaks. It was a brutal reality. The skull continued its tale, recounting the hardships endured under the oppressive regime of 007. 2 figures, one a weary elder, the other a young man in military attire, listened in stunned silence. The weight of the revelation hung heavy in the air. A young man in regal attire gently cradled the skull, his expression one of profound empathy. He sought to understand the skull's resilience. The skull recounted a harsh winter, a time of starvation and freezing temperatures. A single match, a small act of kindness, had saved him. A young man, small and frail, had offered the skull warmth and kindness, a moment of humanity amidst the bleakness. The memory of that kindness, that small act of warmth, remained a powerful beacon of hope for the skull. A bold declaration of rebellion against the oppressive system was made, a symbol of defiance against the odds. The young man and the skull were celebrated for their actions, their new title a testament to their struggle. The young man questioned the lack of suitable titles within the system, highlighting the absurdity of the situation. An elder presented a medal, a symbol of recognition and power, capable of igniting a potent soul fire. The skull's chilling words hung in the air, a stark truth the young man couldn't ignore. Betrayal, a concept so alien to the undead, had occurred, all for human. A wave of awe washed over him as the prince, a figure of immense power, offered him a name, a chance at a new life within the holy Amethyst Empire. He recoiled at the suggestion of Har, a name that evoked a painful past. The weight of history pressed down on him, a burden he couldn't bear. The prince, ever perceptive, offered a compromise, suggesting lowly as an alternative. A glimmer of hope flickered in the young man's eyes. He politely declined, not a fan of that name either. The prince, however, seemed unfazed, his gaze distant as he spoke of ancient legends. With a sigh of resignation, the young man accepted the name Peppa, a whimsical choice that felt oddly fitting, given his past. A new chapter began. A young man, clad in a simple sleeveless shirt, stood bathed in an ethereal light, arcane energies swirling around him. Dark tendrils, like grasping shadows, recoiled from his form. Before him, a regal figure, crowned and robed, stood firm. A solemn vow hung heavy in the air, the weight of a sacred oath palpable. He listened intently, the words a saint, echoing in his mind. The implications of such a title were profound, a path both glorious and perilous. With unwavering resolve, he swore an oath, a promise to humanity, his voice ringing with conviction. A blinding light erupted, engulfing him completely. The transformation was underway. He emerged, stronger, more radiant, the golden light now a part of him. The ceremony was complete. He learned his new title, a name that would forever be associated with his deeds. A wave of uncertainty washed over him. The announcement of Saint Peppa echoed through the assembled crowd, a title both unexpected and momentous. He stood, slightly overwhelmed, flanked by the regal figures who had overseen the ceremony. Doubt flickered in his eyes. He confided in the prince, his new identity a heavy burden. The prince offered support and a mysterious object. The prince explained the enchanted letter's purpose, a vital communication tool for urgent matters. They prepared to depart, leaving behind the weighty ceremony. A new mission awaited. He and his companions discussed their next steps, the weight of their responsibilities settling upon them. Saint Peppa's unique ability to wield diverse weapons was revealed, a secret known only to a select few. His companion, understanding the significance of his name, offered encouragement and a reminder of the work ahead. The newly appointed Saint Peppa, still adjusting to his new title, engaged in a light-hearted conversation with a blonde elf. He confessed his apprehension about the sheer number of people sharing his name, a humorous contrast to the weight of his newfound responsibilities. Their lighthearted exchange was interrupted. A sense of urgency settled over them as they prepared to continue their journey. Xinyi, as he preferred to be called now, stood before a mysterious door, a surge of anger evident in his demeanor. He was clearly agitated, his frustration palpable. He dismissed further pleasantries, his focus unwavering. The weight of his new mission settled upon him, silencing any further idle chatter. With a determined stride, he approached the door, a spectral skull emerging from within, adding an ominous element to the scene. He reacted swiftly, a burst of energy emanating from his hands as he braced himself for whatever lay beyond the threshold. His expression was one of grim determination. The skull lunged, its attack swift and unexpected. Xunyi countered with a powerful blast of energy, his words sharp and defiant. He found himself alone, the door now closed, leaving him to contemplate the mystery that lay before him. A sense of unease settled in. A young man, radiating power, stood amidst swirling darkness and ethereal lights. He was the epicenter of a storm, a nexus of raw energy. He had survived, against all odds, emerging victorious from a trial that tested the limits of human endurance. The weight of his accomplishment settled upon him. A grand ceremony unfolded before him. A prince, surrounded by elders, bestowed upon him a sacred title and honor. His achievements were recognized by both humans and the undead. This recognition signified acceptance by both major races, a testament to his trustworthiness and worth. He had proven himself a valuable asset, worthy of investment. He was the first ordinary person to achieve this feat, breaking all the rules. A hidden ability within his gate had awakened. The newly acquired ability was temporal stagnation, a power to freeze time for a short period. He tested it, a mischievous glint in his eye. The limitations were clear, only 3 seconds per use, with a week-long cooldown. Yet, the potential was immense. He mused on the possibility of upgrading this ability, making it last longer. The current version was merely a trial. He found the brief test exhilarating, a playful interaction with a powerful entity. He had only just begun to explore his newfound power. The skeletal figure, the Big Skelly, as he called it, was amused by the young man's reaction. The game, it seemed, was far from over. Exhausted from the day's events, he collapsed into bed. A friend's urgent message interrupted his slumber. He slept soundly, the day's events fading into a peaceful dream. He needed rest before the next challenge. He had secured a spot in the entrance exams for prestigious schools. A meeting was arranged with a friend. News of another success in the exam spread. Questions arose about her sudden transformation. A man, seemingly unfazed, revealed that the girl's success had been orchestrated by a powerful organization. Secrets were kept, and mysteries remained. The imposing structure of the Archaeology Association loomed, a testament to its power and influence in the world. But Zhao Yibing, despite her recent success, didn't seem connected to such a powerful organization. He decided to ask Xiao Mengyu, who had been investigating Yibing's background, for more information. He reached out to her, his voice laced with a mixture of curiosity and concern. The news of Yibing's death hit him hard. He hadn't even known she was dead. He was on his way to the entrance exams, a journey that would take 10 hours. Mengyu's warning echoed in his mind. Do not meet Zhao Yibing alone. She is extremely dangerous. He ended the call, a sense of unease settling over him. The previous night, a surge of sword qi had erupted from the White River. It was later discovered that Xiao Mengyu was responsible for this powerful display. Her recent breakthrough in swordsmanship was remarkable, especially considering her lack of formal training. He felt a wave of anxiety. He was about to take exams with individuals from privileged backgrounds, individuals with access to resources and training far beyond his own. Despite his humble origins, he found solace in the support of the Human Martial Arts Group, his chosen family. He knew his mentor was just trying to protect him, but the pressure was immense. A title card, promising a grand adventure. A young man, his face etched with worry, stares blankly ahead. He seems lost in thought. He explains his plan to use an old photo to lure someone. His tone is calculating, almost desperate. The young man sits in a park, waving casually. A carefree facade masks his underlying anxiety. He receives a text message, a look of surprise crossing his features. A coincidence? He wonders. Across the city, a young woman walks through a park, seemingly oblivious to the events unfolding. His eyes widen, disbelief and suspicion warring within him. This is no coincidence. He explains to someone that he's on his way to Nanshan Temple, his voice laced with a hint of urgency. He plans to visit the temple to burn incense, a seemingly mundane task in contrast to the growing tension. The woman reacts to the message, her expression a mixture of confusion and intrigue. He checks his phone, a map highlighting a location miles away. She's impossibly close. Exhausted, he decides to sleep, pushing aside his worries for the moment. A distant temple is shown, serene and peaceful, a stark contrast to the growing unease. A figure appears, their presence ominous. The young man is cornered. The confrontation begins. The attacker taunts him, confident in their victory. The woman arrives, her determination clear. She intends to reclaim what was lost. A figure, cloaked in shadow, stood over a fallen foe. The words, "no matter what," hung heavy in the air, a grim vow echoing in the silence of the forest. Snow fell softly on a distant temple, its ancient eaves heavy with the weight of years and secrets. A burst of fireworks briefly illuminated the night sky, a fleeting moment of vibrant color against the somber backdrop. A young boy, his face alight with joy, ran through the falling snow, chasing the ephemeral beauty of the fireworks. Two young girls, huddled together, their faces etched with fear, fled through the darkening woods. A monstrous wolf-like creature emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing menacingly in the dim light. The boy, his earlier joy replaced by terror, scrambled away from the approaching beast. He reached the girls, pulling them to safety as the creature lunged, its jaws snapping shut just inches from their faces. A bloody handprint marked the snow, a silent testament to the struggle. A rhythmic beeping sound filled the sterile environment of a hospital room. Doctors and nurses examined the boy, noting the numerous bite marks on his body. His survival seemed miraculous. The beeping continued, a steady pulse in the tense atmosphere. The girls presented the boy with handmade cards, their gratitude evident in their eyes. He, too, had prepared a card for them, a small token of his appreciation. The girls left, their voices filled with happiness as they walked away from the hospital. The name, Shunyi, echoed in the quiet city streets, a whisper on the wind. A young man, Shunyi, jolted awake. He was being urged to eat, a gruff voice barely audible above the boy's own disorientation. 10 years had passed. He pondered their faces, now distant memories, a wistful curiosity clouding his thoughts. A stark, shadowed figure emerged from a mysterious doorway, the question hanging heavy in the air. Who am I? A young man, his form silhouetted against an ethereal purple glow, stood defiant. Dark tendrils, swirling with iridescent light, writhed around him, a stark contrast to the calm intensity in his eyes. The airship's interior was opulent. Sunlight streamed through large windows, illuminating a plush dining area. A table, set for two, awaited. He scoffed, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. The luxurious surroundings were clearly nothing new to him. He devoured the meal with gusto, his earlier nonchalance replaced by unrestrained appetite. His companion watched, a hint of amusement in their eyes. His companion, a man of quiet demeanor, observed him with a subtle smile. The scene was one of comfortable companionship. A young man approached their table, politely asking if he could have the remaining skewers. He was granted permission with a nod. The young man, clearly nervous, explained his affiliation with the Eternity Tech Consortium. His words hung heavy in the air. An older man, his face etched with years of wisdom and authority, appeared, his arrival causing a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The older man, Qian Russian, expressed surprise at the young man's efficiency in recruiting new members. The children were dismissed, leaving the adults to their serious discussion. A woman, her face partially obscured by sunglasses, watched intently. He gestured towards the exit, inviting the young man to explore the airship. A new adventure was about to begin. Introductions were exchanged. The young man, Shunyi, was invited to go bowling. Shunyi accepted the invitation, eager for some light-hearted fun after the intense events. A mysterious card appeared, its purpose unclear. Intrigue filled the air. With a burst of energy, the card was transferred. A new chapter had begun. He showed his cards, a smirk playing on his lips. It's not a trick, he explained. It's the top 3 high school rookies deck. The card detailed the requirements for advancement. 6 willing participants in one activity, then 12 in another. He continued, explaining the significance of becoming a card in the deck, highlighting the advantages it offered. A sudden shift in perspective revealed the Tarot Tower, the organization behind the exam, and its all-seeing eye. Completing missions not only boosted exam scores, but also attracted attention from major organizations. He eagerly accepted the challenge, already fantasizing about the rewards. He pondered his next move, realizing he needed a strategy to recruit participants without directly asking. The card's instructions were clear: leverage the exam's information to his advantage. He found himself in a dimly lit hallway, a sense of unease settling over him. He proposed a challenge, touching a high vent. His companion expressed disbelief. The other candidate scoffed. And what if I do touch it? He smirked. Then I'll admit you've got skills. A young man, silhouetted against a backdrop of swirling darkness and spectral figures, stood defiant. His power, barely contained, pulsed with an ominous energy. He stood before a stern-faced instructor, the weight of expectation heavy in the air. The scene was stark, the silence broken only by the rhythmic thud of a heart. With a burst of speed, he launched himself forward, a blur of motion against the stark white walls of the training facility. Reaching out, he attempted to touch a high point on the wall, his fingers stretching towards the seemingly impossible. He strained, muscles bulging, but fell short, a frustrated groan escaping his lips. The challenge remained unmet. His opponent, equally determined, stepped forward, a smirk playing on his lips. The game was far from over. He too launched himself, a powerful leap carrying him effortlessly towards the target. Confidence radiated from him. A group of onlookers watched, their expressions a mixture of awe and amusement. The competition was captivating. One of the observers, a young man with a critical eye, scoffed. Fingertips didn't count. A full palm slap was the true measure. Another scoffed back, his words dripping with arrogance. Talk was cheap. He would show them. He boasted of his past training, his confidence unwavering. The challenge was accepted. A young woman watched, her eyes wide with disbelief. The intensity of the competition was overwhelming. One competitor declared their intention to surpass the others, their determination palpable. The race was on. Another competitor, equally ambitious, vowed to reach the highest point. The tension mounted. One competitor reached the top, a triumphant laugh echoing through the air. The challenge was met. The scene shifted, a new challenge announced. The group prepared for the next test. A young man, surrounded by papers, addressed the group. He explained the workshop's purpose, to protect them from deceitful relationships during their youth. He continued, explaining that a martial arts group had invited him to give a free workshop on relationship red flags. The young man's words caused a wave of realization among the listeners. They had been careless, showing off their bodies too easily. Another young man, however, lamented the fleeting nature of life and the preciousness of his body, expressing reluctance to risk it. He pondered how to handle persistent online messaging from someone he knew, seeking advice from his peers. A friend offered a clever strategy. Keep responding with short, casual replies to end the conversation naturally. The young man, feeling hurt and scared, confided in his brothers about a girl's hurtful comments. The group agreed that they needed to be responsible for their own actions and decisions. One of the young men triumphantly declared he had completed the challenge and was now a member of the rookie deck. Meanwhile, a group of older men observed the younger generation, discussing their behavior and the upcoming journey. They discussed the upcoming journey and the memories it evoked, noting that things would soon become less relaxed. A narrator's voice revealed a past calamity in the southeastern provinces, where many masters had perished sealing a great evil. The narrator continued, explaining that the children of fallen heroes were being given a chance at the academy, despite the risks. An older man, seemingly in charge, spoke with a younger woman, acknowledging the situation's complexity and their inability to interfere. A young man, radiating an ethereal glow, stood amidst swirling, shadowy tendrils. The air crackled with unseen energy. He looked up, a hint of weariness in his eyes, as he addressed unseen companions. His words carried a sense of urgency. The scene shifted to a breathtaking vista. A colossal airship, majestic against a vibrant sunset, sailed across the horizon. A hand, seemingly out of nowhere, produced a card depicting a skull with glowing eyes, an unsettling image. The card revealed the young man's identity. Shun Yi, a provisional card member, his image accompanied by a skull. He pondered the implications of becoming an official card member, the benefits outweighing the risks. He considered the guaranteed admission to a prestigious academy, but also the fierce competition. The sheer number of applicants and the limited slots fueled his apprehension. He reflected on the intense competition, the vast disparity between ordinary applicants and those from influential families. A card appeared, showcasing a serene landscape, a stark contrast to the previous skull. Another card materialized, this one displaying Xiao Mengyu, a 5-star card member, her power evident. Xinyi reacted with a mix of awe and envy to her impressive status. He discovered he could add friends on his card, a new feature. He added Xiao Mengyu as a friend, initiating a direct communication channel. She explained the automated card appearance, offering to discuss it later. He checked the rankings, eager to see his position among the elite. A young man's brow furrowed in concentration as he studied a list of names. Xiao Mengyu, an unmatched swordswoman, was only ranked 5th? Intrigued, he decided to investigate the top contender. The image before him was that of Nangong Sarui, a regal figure seated upon an ornate throne, exuding an air of power and authority. He learned that Nangong Sarui was the eldest son of a prominent family, heir to a powerful bloodline, and possessed a strength level of 6 stars, making him the undisputed number 1. His surprise was palpable. The top-ranked warrior was a man, and a rather handsome one at that. A wave of disbelief washed over him. He realized the daunting task ahead. The top 5 were all from noble families, making his own climb to the top seem nearly impossible. He reflected on his own struggles, the countless days spent trying to improve his ranking. He needed a way to raise his star rating quickly. A thought struck him. He recalled an incomplete set of the heaven-shattering Frost Moon technique. With renewed determination, he channeled his energy, his body glowing with a purple aura. He began practicing the incomplete technique, 2 ghostly images mirroring his movements. The power surged, a torrent of icy energy erupting around him. He continued to refine his control, the icy energy shaping itself into a powerful, swirling vortex. He moved with speed and precision, the icy energy a weapon in his hands. He landed gracefully, the technique complete. He had mastered the moonlit deer walk. Despite its incompleteness, the technique was still powerful, a testament to his skill and determination. A triumphant grin spread across his face. It worked. He had successfully leveled up. He was now officially a one-star member of the deck, granted the privilege of declining one challenge per hour. The screen flickered, displaying Shunye's card. It depicted him, a young man, cradling a skull, a stark image against a crimson backdrop. The title, Shunyi, Form 0, appeared above, hinting at a potential for transformation. A young man, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood defiant amidst swirling darkness. His power, raw and untamed, pulsed around him. A card materialized, showcasing the young man's image and the title Shunyi. His status, a one-star rookie. He received a message. Friends were waiting, but he had other plans, a ship to catch first. The news of his one-star ranking caused quite a stir. His rapid rise exceeded all expectations. His mentor chuckled, amused by the excitement. Even a temporary ranking brought attention. They arrived at their destination, a floating island, a city unlike any other. It was Cloudspire Port, once the edge of ancient ruins, now a bustling hub. The city was built upon the ruins, many areas still unexplored and dangerous. Within the ruins lay Jialan Academy, one of the world's most prestigious schools. The students and teachers researched the ruins, uncovering their history and legacies. A woman, smoking a cigarette, watched them. Humanity's brightest shoulders bore the responsibility of excavating the past, searching for answers. A massive airship approached, trailing streaks of light. What was happening? The question hung in the air. After a banquet, they would be teleported to the exam site. High scores meant better rewards. The exam format varied yearly, sometimes a simple test, other times a grueling, months-long ordeal. Shinyi stared out at the vast, desolate landscape. His companion sighed, voicing the impossibility of adequately preparing for such an unpredictable exam. A wave of energy pulsed around him as he was integrated into the rookie deck. His first quest appeared, a seemingly impossible task involving an azure dragon. He stared at the card, a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror on his face. Meanwhile, a woman with dark hair and sunglasses observed the exam's unusual nature, noting the difficulty of the quests and the resources required to complete them. The sheer volume of tasks required for one quest alone was staggering, slaying thousands of demons over a decade. He dismissed the impossible quest, already knowing it was beyond his capabilities as a one-star rookie. His companions, however, were less concerned. They seemed to know something he didn't. He was immediately challenged by another participant, a fiery outburst revealing the brutal nature of the competition. The other competitors scoffed at his inexperience, highlighting the vast difference in their skill levels. He was warned about the dangers of the exam site, the heavy surveillance, and the consequences of violence. His rating was complete, revealing a dangerous truth. He was in constant mortal danger. He questioned the rating, knowing the rules forbade killing within the exam grounds. He pondered the reasons for his high-risk rating, suspecting either a targeted attack or a new assassin among the examinees. A challenge was issued. He braced himself. The challenger's identity was revealed, Xiao Mengyu. The challenge was unavoidable. A young man, bathed in an ethereal purple light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. His power felt completely different. Xiao Mengyu, a woman with striking purple hair, appeared in a grand city, her arrival causing a stir. She challenged him, but he brushed it off, their past a shared experience. He felt stronger, his body having undergone a transformation. His companion explained his increased strength, noting the evolution of his titles. They sought a quiet place to talk, a soundproof training hall. The hall was described, its purpose clear. Suddenly, a fierce attack disrupted their conversation. He reacted instantly, shielding his companion from harm. His opponent, surprised by his strength, questioned his actions. Another individual, seemingly uncaring, interrupted, eager for a fight. The newcomer was identified as a high-ranking rookie. Another opponent appeared, a one-star fighter. He saw this as an opportunity, a stroke of luck. Two women argued over who would fight him next. The fight intensified. One combatant, clearly agitated, accused the other of hogging all the attention. Their words hung heavy in the air, a prelude to the clash about to erupt. Blades clashed, sparks flying as the two women engaged in a whirlwind of motion. One, wielding twin blades, moved with deadly grace, while her opponent countered with raw power. The force of the impact sent a shockwave through the air, a testament to the sheer power of the blows exchanged. The woman with the long hair stood defiant, her expression unreadable. She pressed her advantage, her words sharp and cutting as her movements. The other woman, clearly outmatched, found herself on the defensive, struggling to keep up. Despite the ferocity of the attack, the woman's clothes were torn to shreds, yet her skin remained miraculously untouched. A moment of stunned silence followed, as the onlookers processed what they had just witnessed. The scene shifted. A group of onlookers, initially stunned by the display of skill, now reacted with a mixture of awe and apprehension. A young woman with purple hair, Her expression, unreadable, spoke of the impending fight. She reassured her companion, playfully dismissing their concerns. The tension remained palpable, however, as the two prepared for what was to come. A final explanation was given, revealing the true reason behind the upcoming fight. The weight of the situation settled upon them, the implications clear and unavoidable. A young man, radiating power, stood bathed in an ethereal light, a stark contrast to the encroaching darkness that swirled around him. He listened intently as a woman with striking purple hair explained the rules of an upcoming competition, her words emphasizing the high stakes. Her confident demeanor reassured her companion, a young man with bright blue hair, easing his concerns about potential challenges. They discussed the unlikelihood of facing serious opposition, their conversation laced with a sense of self-assuredness. The blue-haired young man pondered the implications of a potential upset, considering the consequences of losing. The purple-haired woman responded with a decisive plan, her strategy focused on securing victory. They entered a soundproof training hall, ready to prepare for the upcoming competition. Their conversation shifted to the arrogance of some of the other competitors, their disdain palpable. Meanwhile, a woman with dark hair reflected on the mysterious Zhao Yibing, her thoughts filled with concern. The blue-haired young man revealed that he had received a message, contradicting earlier assumptions about Zhao Yibing's death. The purple-haired woman's expression turned serious as she processed this new information, her concern growing. He considered the implications, realizing the possibility that Zhao Yibing's death might have been faked. The purple-haired woman urged extreme caution, emphasizing the danger posed by Zhao Yibing. A horrifying transformation occurred, revealing a monstrous figure, confirming their suspicions. The blue-haired young man reported the situation, but the response was slow, leaving them feeling vulnerable. He reflected on the futility of their previous attempts to involve the authorities, realizing the gravity of their situation. News of a contract killing reached her. The target, Skinner. The assassin's methods were precise. All communications were cut to ensure his escape. She learned the family backing Skinner wielded considerable influence. That morning, several noble families had visited, seeking an alliance through marriage. One suitor was described, a man in his 50s, recently widowed. He seemed oblivious to the danger. He'd been given an ultimatum, but he'd asked for time to consider. His hesitation was palpable. Because she was weak, she couldn't refuse outright. She had to play along, observing from the shadows and waiting for the right moment to act. The family's pressure was immense, but she'd never wavered in her resolve. She was determined to maintain her independence. She knew little about the powerful families involved. Her mentor stepped in, offering guidance. She was warned about the dangers of untrained individuals attempting advanced techniques. The risks were significant. A sudden attack, a swift countermove. The fight began. She moved with practiced grace, her movements a blur. The opponent was clearly outmatched. The training began. A surge of energy enveloped him. He was learning a new technique. It was the Luo family's ripple tracing sword technique. She offered to teach him. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant against a backdrop of swirling darkness. Unseen forces crackled around him, hinting at a power yet to be unleashed. He was the focus, a solitary figure amidst the chaos. The scene pulsed with an energy that spoke of immense power and impending conflict. A woman, her face etched with concern, watched him from a distance. The words ripple treading sword technique hung in the air, a question and a warning. Her worry was palpable. The young man's actions could have dire consequences. The weight of tradition and potential danger pressed heavily upon her. He turned his gaze towards her, a silent acknowledgement of her apprehension. His expression was one of quiet determination. He spoke, his voice soft but firm, expressing his reluctance to involve her in his dangerous path. She responded, her words revealing a past encounter and a debt of gratitude that compelled her to help him, despite the risks. His explanation of his previous encounter highlighted the urgency of his current situation and the necessity of learning a new technique. She acknowledged the necessity of abandoning his previous approach, suggesting alternative methods. He listened intently, his focus unwavering. The weight of his situation was evident in his posture. She introduced a new technique, the thunder palm, explaining its power and rarity. He was surprised, his curiosity piqued. The implications of mastering such a powerful technique were immense. The origin of the technique was revealed, adding a layer of mystery and intrigue to the narrative. The location of its discovery was shown, a place of ancient power and forgotten knowledge. She began to teach him, emphasizing the difficulty and the need for focus and aptitude. His aptitude was assessed, revealing his potential and the path ahead. The instructor, a woman with long purple hair, demonstrated the thunder palm technique, her movements fluid and precise. A surge of blue energy crackled around her hands. The energy pulsed, radiating outward in a mesmerizing display of power. Her student, a young man with short blue hair, watched intently, absorbing every detail of the demonstration. He voiced his doubt, questioning the technique's apparent lack of power, and wondered if he had performed it incorrectly. The instructor reacted sharply to his assessment, challenging his perception of the technique's power and questioning his execution. She explained that the technique's true power lay in its precise channeling of qi and blood, a detail he had overlooked. He attempted the technique again, focusing on the precise movements she had described. The result was a far more powerful display of energy. The energy surged from his palm, a stark contrast to his previous, weaker attempt. His body strained under the force of the unleashed energy, a testament to the technique's raw power. He looked to his instructor, a mixture of awe and exhaustion in his eyes. She smiled, impressed by his quick understanding and aptitude. She explained that her specialty was swordsmanship, not palm techniques, but she had quickly assessed his potential. A text box appeared, detailing the aptitude points required to master the thunder palm technique at various stages. He pondered the meaning of aptitude, realizing the significance of early training in mastering such advanced techniques. With a triumphant shout, he unleashed another wave of energy, demonstrating his newfound mastery. He had reached the adept stage, a testament to his exceptional aptitude. His power rating was updated, reflecting his significant improvement. He had become a 2-star rookie, gaining access to new customization options for his appearance. A card shimmered, its surface reflecting a young man, Shunyi. He was bald, a serene yet mischievous glint in his eyes, adorned with a necklace of skulls. He dropped the card, a look of disbelief washing over him. The card, it seemed, had a personality of its own, its attitude a reflection of his current skill level. A nearby woman watched, a mixture of amusement and concern on her face. A young man, bathed in an ethereal purple light, stood amidst swirling shadows. Power crackled in his hands, a silent promise of the storm to come. He was warned to be careful. His actions had consequences. A careless mistake could affect his rating. A glance at the clock spurred him into action. He had a meeting with Qian Russian, and time was short. He briefly spoke with a woman with purple hair, leaving her with a task. The matter of Skinner remained unresolved. He received his room key and headed to his room, reflecting on the wealth and power of his associates. He couldn't ignore the mysterious techniques he'd gathered. He had to understand their secrets. With a burst of energy, he began practicing one of the techniques, blue energy arcing around him. His attempt at a thunder palm technique failed, leaving him questioning its origin. He was berated for his choice of training methods, deemed junk by his companion. His companion explained the uselessness of the techniques he'd collected, highlighting their limitations. The origin of one technique, Thunder Palm, was revealed to be from the nightmare realm, a place of fear. He questioned the technique's presence in this world, puzzled by its incongruity. He recalled his previous attempts to master other techniques, the incomplete, heaven-shattering Frost Moon. A sudden violent coughing fit racked his body, blood staining his clothes. He collapsed, his companion shocked and concerned by his sudden deterioration. Gasping for breath, he struggled to comprehend what was happening to him, his body failing. A wave of darkness crashed over him, a chilling premonition of death. Blood welled in his eyes, blurring his vision as consciousness slipped away. He lay there, gasping for breath, the cold reality of his impending demise settling upon him. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. Then, a sudden, violent expulsion of energy propelled him upwards, a blue light engulfing his form as he hurtled through the void. A trail of shimmering blue energy marked his ascent, a stark contrast to the inky blackness surrounding him. The energy pulsed, a rhythmic beat against the silence. He impacted the ground hard, the force of the fall knocking the wind from his lungs. Pain shot through him, a searing agony. But even as he fell, the blue energy continued to flow, a lifeline in the darkness. He felt an intense cold, a numbing chill that seeped into his very being. He coughed, a ragged, desperate sound, as he struggled to comprehend what was happening. This cold sensation, it was strangely familiar, bringing back a forgotten memory. He realized, with a jolt of understanding, that he'd found a new way to breathe, a breath that carried an icy chill, warding off the encroaching darkness. He drew in another breath, the icy air filling his lungs, a strange comfort in the midst of chaos. He floated, suspended in the star-dusted void, the blue energy a constant companion. His eyes fluttered closed, a sense of peace settling over him as he felt the energy synchronize with every part of his body. This new breathing method was more than just survival. It was a profound connection, a harmony between his body and the energy that flowed through him. A young man, clad in simple clothing, knelt beside a rushing stream, the water a vibrant, swirling green. He seemed lost in thought, but seemed peaceful despite his troubled expression. He fell backward, tumbling into the current, the water's gentle flow suddenly becoming a forceful torrent. The world twisted and blurred around him as he plunged deeper, the colors shifting into an ethereal, almost otherworldly glow. He found himself suspended in a void, a massive, luminous moon hanging overhead. The word unity echoed in the silence. He felt himself rising, a strange energy coursing through his veins, as if he were merging with something vast and powerful. He opened his eyes, his breathing now calm and measured, a newfound clarity washing over him. He understood. His previous breathing had been shallow and chaotic. He looked around, disoriented. "Ah!" he exclaimed, a voice rising from within him, a voice he didn't recognize. A voice echoed in his mind, revealing the nature of this place, the arcane realm. A swirling vortex of cosmic energy opened before him. The arcane realm. A breathtaking vista of celestial bodies and swirling nebulae stretched before him, a stark contrast to the serene stream he'd been by moments before. A young man, bathed in an ethereal purple light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows. The scene pulsed with arcane energy. He found himself in an unfamiliar place, a scene so strange it defied recognition. A voice, however, stirred within him, offering cryptic guidance. The voice led him to a vast, cosmic expanse, a realm of swirling nebulae and shattered celestial bodies. This was the arcane realm. He collapsed, his body spent, leaving a trail of blood on the dark ground. A message appeared, proclaiming his mastery of the arcane realm ocular art. His eyes glowed with newfound power, a divine moonlight gaze. Shenyi, overwhelmed by the sudden surge of power, questioned the reality of his experience. His stats had increased dramatically, a surge of power coursing through his veins. He pondered the meaning of his newfound resonance, a mysterious enhancement. The arcane eye opened, revealing a new path, a true being grade title within reach. He had obtained the heaven-shattering Frost Moon, a rare and powerful arcane art. His existing techniques evolved, gaining new power and capabilities. The Frostbite kicking technique, Moonflow movement technique, and Thunderclap palm technique were now at his disposal. He mastered the Celestial Shadow esoteric art, allowing him to move undetected in shadows. He stood, a changed man, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, his power amplified threefold. Shenyi, his body slick with blood, reviewed the battle's aftermath. A wave of exhaustion crashed over him, but a thrill of triumph pulsed beneath it. He had not only survived, but he had mastered new techniques, his power amplified beyond anything he'd imagined. He dismissed the complexities of his newfound abilities with a frustrated sigh. The world felt too complicated, too full of unanswered questions. He splashed water on his face, the cold shock momentarily clearing his head. The near-death experience felt surreal, a dream from which he'd only just awakened. A holographic display flickered to life, revealing a list of powerful titles. These were not easily earned. Each required the completion of incredibly difficult tasks. The titles themselves were cryptic, hinting at a larger narrative he was only beginning to understand. He saw references to himself, to legends he'd only read about in dusty tomes. His eyes felt different, sharper, more intense. He realized he had activated the moonlight gaze, an ocular art that enhanced his perception. The implications of his new abilities were staggering. He was no longer just a boy. He was a force to be reckoned with. He noticed a red thread wrapped around his neck, a strange artifact he hadn't seen before. It was connected to the titles, to the power he now wielded. He touched the thread, a jolt of energy coursing through him. A sense of unease settled over him. What did this mean? What was he capable of? A young man, seemingly radiating dark energy, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. The air crackled with unseen power. The scene shifted to a lavish casino, its opulent exterior gleaming under the night sky. Inside, high-stakes games were underway. A tense conversation unfolded at a poker table. A man, clearly irritated, berated his associates for a botched assassination attempt. He folded his cards, offering a curt apology for the failure. His expression betrayed a simmering anger. Two men discussed the fallout from the failed assassination. One, clearly annoyed, insisted they shouldn't have to clean up the mess. A holographic image flickered to life, revealing a stern-faced man. He was issuing orders. The holographic figure identified himself as Gong Wu, director of the League of Assassins, addressing a group of young assassins. Gong Wu explained the circumstances of the failed assassination, revealing the assassin's recklessness and ultimate fate. Gong Wu addressed another assassin, emphasizing the importance of success in the upcoming mission. Failure was not an option. The scene shifted to a different location, where another assassin was being briefed on the mission. The briefing continued, highlighting the target's connections and the potential complications of the mission. An establishing shot showed the League of Assassins headquarters, a formidable fortress situated on a remote island. Back at the casino, Gong Wu was attacked. Blood splattered as he was viciously assaulted. The attacker's superior resilience was noted, a testament to their unique training and physiology. The attack continued, with several other figures joining the fray. A chaotic fight ensued. Amidst the chaos, a powerful dark energy erupted, engulfing the scene in a crimson maelstrom. A figure emerged from the darkness. Her crimson eyes narrowed, a promise made to others weighing heavily on her mind. He smirked, a casual dismissal masking a deeper calculation. The words hung in the air, a subtle threat. The master's instructions were clear. Their next hunt would be in Cloud Spire Port, a place teeming with the scions of great families. More than anything, she craved the souls of the powerful, a hunger that fueled her dark ambition. His generosity, boundless in its cruelty, was met with unwavering loyalty. The spell was already in motion. The spell's power surged, binding the target's fate to the master's will. She knew the risks. Even she couldn't bring him back from such a powerful being. This hunt was about more than just souls. He surveyed the scene, the crimson threads connecting his victims, a chilling display of his power. He also wanted to know who Xunyi truly was. The master of the spell was alerted. The trap had been sprung. With a surge of power, the spell was broken. Relief washed over him, but the danger wasn't over. He cursed, realizing Skinner's return. The card's rating update confirmed his suspicions. The card's rating changed, signaling a shift in the game. The hunt was far from over. The deer, unaware of its fate, stood before the deadly trap. The question remained, could it escape death? A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and monstrous figures. His power, raw and untamed, pulsed around him. He examined a card, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. This wasn't just a game, it sensed his status. The card displayed a portrait of him, Xunyi, highlighting his impressive rank and potential. His 5-star privileges were detailed, a special power for the upcoming exam and the ability to mask his true rank. A new card materialized, its arcane symbols hinting at a hidden power. He was ranked 11th, a testament to his arcane eye's strength, but he chose to hide his true level for now. He considered the risks. Even with his hidden rank, powerful opponents still threatened him. He focused on getting stronger, knowing that the battlefield was unpredictable and that paper stats meant little. A woman's voice, sharp with concern, cut through his thoughts. She had been worried sick about him. A man, his face etched with seriousness, explained the 3 great high schools and their unique focuses. The locations of the schools were revealed: Jalan High in floating ruins, Nadir High in the deep sea, and Terran High deep within the earth. He pondered the school's strengths and histories, their origins in ancient sects. Ethel High, the strongest, focused on arcane arts and attracted the children of powerful families. Nadir High, while dealing with ancient knowledge, also produced many disciples of various cults. The imposing silhouette of Terran High loomed, its foundations resting upon a colossal, subterranean tomb. It was here, amidst the ancient burial grounds, that the study of human history had begun, a practical pursuit. The tomb held more than just history. It was a treasure trove of monstrous remains, each part a valuable commodity, from limbs to hair, ores, and spear herbs. A man, sharply dressed, explained the rarity of the artifacts within. Their true value lay not in their use, but in their research potential. He continued, explaining that to utilize these items required a high degree of resonance, a phenomenon known as attunement. The man clarified that attunement meant the items acknowledged the user, a reciprocal bond. He gestured, emphasizing that Xunyi had already earned such acknowledgement from the arcane realm. Xunyi, surprised, learned that the arcane realm was the source of all power, and that his attunement indicated his strength level. Presented with several technique manuals, Xunyi reacted with a mixture of awe and confusion. 2 men, one with silver hair, discussed a chrysanthemum-based technique, where petals served as hidden weapons. The technique's mastery could even induce hallucinations in opponents, a testament to its power. Meanwhile, an archaeologist felt a lingering presence at an excavation site, despite the official completion of the dig. Suddenly, a gruff voice startled him, breaking the silence. A man, seemingly reacting to the mention of a technique, found a manual spontaneously appearing before him. Xunyi scoffed at the idea that the manual's appearance was a manifestation of resonance, finding it utterly ridiculous. The man explained that perfect compatibility, or resonance, often led to the recipient receiving a powerful gift, though not always. Xunyi was then given a choice of divine fist techniques to learn, a crucial backup for his upcoming exam. Xunyi, a 5-star ranked prodigy, grinned, his blue hair practically glowing under the ethereal light. He held a single technique manual aloft, its deep blue cover a stark contrast to the others. The others were unremarkable, common-quality texts. This one, however, felt different. A thrill of anticipation coursed through him. Could this northeastern fist truly be something special? A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and spectral figures. His power, raw and untamed, pulsed around him. He listened intently as his instructor explained a powerful technique, his brow furrowed in concentration. The instructor, a formidable figure, spoke of the technique's potential, hinting at a significant power increase. With a sudden burst of speed, the instructor demonstrated the technique's devastating power, a whirlwind of motion. He reflected on his progress, confident in his abilities and eager to hone his skills further. The time was late, but he knew he had enough time to rest before an important event. He received a message, a cryptic rendezvous at the gym, setting the stage for a clandestine meeting. He walked the city streets, his mind preoccupied with the upcoming encounter. An old man, weathered and worn, approached him, seeking assistance. He offered what little he had, a small act of kindness in the bustling city. The old man's gratitude was palpable, a silent understanding passing between them. He continued on his way, the encounter leaving a lingering impression. Suddenly, he was struck, a sharp blow that sent him reeling. He reacted instinctively, a surge of energy coursing through him. The old man, seemingly frail, revealed a hidden power, his attack swift and precise. He dodged with surprising agility, the old man's surprise evident in his expression. The young man, barely more than a boy, unleashed a surge of blue energy, a raw power that seemed to defy his age. He was told he was still just a kid. His eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity, the violet light reflecting the power he now commanded. This was the divine moonlight gaze. Across from him stood an elderly figure, cloaked in shadow, his presence somehow both frail and imposing. The question hung in the air. How could he possibly wield an invisible sword? He moved with surprising speed, a blur of motion as he leaped from rooftop to rooftop, the old man's unseen blade a mere whisper behind him. Below, a small explosion erupted as the old man's attack found its mark, a testament to the power hidden beneath his seemingly frail exterior. The old man, sensing the young man's surprise, confirmed that his ability to see the attack was due to his unique skill. He could see it. He had been neglecting his training, and the old man, a seasoned warrior, decided to teach him a lesson. He was being lectured. He countered, reminding the old man that their relationship went far beyond a simple master-student dynamic. They had faced life and death together. A surge of fiery energy erupted from the young man, a new power awakening within him. He had achieved a breakthrough, earning a new title. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows. Dark, almost inky tendrils reached for him, but he remained unyielding. The title, Lord of the Empyrean Flame, blazed across the page, a stark contrast to the scene of impending conflict. He scoffed, his words cutting through the air like shards of ice. The accusation stung, but he stood firm, his resolve unshaken. An older man, cloaked in shadow and fire, watched from a distance, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. He found the situation intriguing. The old man's face, etched with years of wisdom and battles fought, held a deep sadness. The betrayal of his family weighed heavily on him. He launched a swift attack, his movements precise and deadly. The young man barely managed to evade the blow. The young man countered, his own attack a burst of raw energy. The old man grunted, surprised by the force of the blow. He unleashed a powerful electric surge, the energy crackling around his hands. The old man braced himself for the impact. A powerful fist, imbued with icy energy, connected with his opponent. The force of the blow sent shockwaves through the air. The impact was deafening, a thunderclap that echoed through the city. The force of the collision was immense. He moved with blinding speed, a blur of motion as he pursued his target through the city streets. A woman watched from a distance, her expression unreadable. He smirked, acknowledging the skill of his opponent. The fight was far from over. A dark shadow enveloped the old man, a chilling presence that spoke of immense power. He felt a sudden chill. He dodged, barely avoiding a fatal blow. The old man's attack was swift and precise. A wave of frost swept over him, freezing his movements. He struggled against the icy grip. He escaped, leaving behind a trail of icy shards. The old man watched him go, his expression unreadable. A surge of blue energy erupted from the young man, crackling with raw power. He stood defiant, eyes blazing. The old man watched, a mixture of surprise and calculation in his gaze. He had underestimated the boy's strength. He chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. The old man's expression shifted, revealing a hint of amusement. The young man, sensing the shift in the old man's demeanor, braced himself. He knew this wasn't over. He had awakened something powerful, something ancient. The arcane eyes, a testament to his newfound abilities. The old man warned him about the Kunlun surveillance, the consequences of his actions hanging heavy in the air. He mused on the mistakes of the older generation, a quiet reflection amidst the brewing conflict. With a final flourish of energy, the old man vanished, leaving the young man alone to face the repercussions. A swirling vortex of fiery energy erupted where the old man had stood, a lingering testament to his power. The young man watched him go, a question lingering in his mind. Who was that old man? He was gone. A wave of uncertainty washed over him as he realized the old man had truly left. Meanwhile, the old man prepared for a seaside vacation, a well-deserved break after the recent events. A tense meeting unfolded, the weight of family matters pressing down on those present. The consequences of the young man's actions were discussed. One man's face was violently struck, the impact echoing the severity of the situation. The aftermath of the attack was brutal, leaving a trail of destruction and injury in its wake. The consequences of the old man's actions were laid bare, the destruction of a young talent's future a heavy price to pay. A powerful surge of energy erupted from the woman's clenched fist, the very air around her shimmering with raw power. Her words hung heavy in the air. The future of the Luo family was at stake. High above, a colossal airship sliced through the clouds, its metallic frame gleaming under the pale sunlight. A lone figure clung precariously to its exterior. From this vantage point, the world stretched out below, its true nature revealed. A man, cloaked and observing, noted the arcane eyes of a young person, barely 15. Below, an old man watched the unfolding events, his gaze filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension. He hadn't witnessed such power in centuries. He raised a hand, a spark of fiery energy igniting between his fingers. The old man's power, though formidable, was a mere candle compared to the sun. The energy intensified, radiating outward like a lotus blossom emerging from crystal-clear water. Its power was immense, exceeding even the most optimistic estimations. The old man, after much deliberation, decided to support his granddaughter's actions. His decision, though risky, was born of a deep love and unwavering faith. He watched her, a silent guardian, his resolve hardening. They would face whatever came together. A portrait of the Luo family patriarch hung in the background, a stark reminder of the legacy at stake. His gaze seemed to follow the unfolding events. A young man, bathed in an ethereal glow, stood defiant amid swirling shadows. The air crackled with unseen energy. Moments before, a tense exchange unfolded. He had sensed something, a disturbance in the force, a prelude to something far greater. A woman with striking purple hair moved with lethal grace, her movements a blur of motion. A sword flashed, leaving trails of purple energy. The resonance from her blade was terrifying, a palpable force that sent shivers down the spines of those nearby. Despite her power, she struggled. The weight of her technique was immense, demanding a level of mastery she hadn't yet achieved. Her title remained unchanged, a testament to the rigorous standards of the arcane realm. Her power, though formidable, hadn't yet reached the next level. She pondered the meaning of the arcane realm's acknowledgement, a certification of power that implied a higher authority. Meanwhile, information surfaced about a man, once a respected archaeologist, now an assassin. His past held a dark secret. His actions had unleashed an otherworldly entity, causing widespread devastation. The scale of the catastrophe was immense. The man's resurrection was unexpected, his transformation into an assassin a chilling twist of fate. Elsewhere, a mother and daughter lived in quiet fear, unaware of the connection to the archaeologist's past. The woman suspected a link between the two events, a hidden thread connecting the seemingly disparate incidents. She shared her findings, urging caution. The danger was real, and the stakes were high. He acknowledged her warning, his expression serious. He understood the gravity of the situation. A silent understanding passed between them. The weight of responsibility settled upon their shoulders. Later, a family matter arose, adding another layer of complexity to her already burdened life. The weight of her family's expectations pressed down. The scene opens in a sterile hospital room. A young man lies in bed, his face pale and drawn, the aftermath of grief etched onto his features. He speaks, his voice heavy with exhaustion and despair, recounting the recent loss of his brother and his father's subsequent collapse. He continues, explaining the pressure from his family to marry into another powerful clan, a demand he's been desperately trying to avoid. The weight of expectation is palpable. A young woman with vibrant purple hair and striking green eyes listens intently, her expression a mixture of concern and understanding. She voices her apprehension about the potential consequences of defying such a powerful family. The young man, undeterred, reveals his frustration and anger at the family's actions, his words laced with a simmering rage. He proposes a daring escape, a rejection of his family's suffocating control. A narration box reveals the young man's humble background and unexpected strength, contrasting sharply with his current predicament. The narrative shifts to a flashback, recalling a past encounter with a formidable opponent. The woman, captivated by his story, observes him with newfound admiration. Her internal monologue reveals her appreciation for his rugged charm and quiet strength. He formally asks her out on a date, a bold move given the circumstances. She hesitates, acknowledging the unconventional nature of his proposal. She playfully teases him, admitting that she doesn't usually accept dates so readily, but his sincerity is undeniable. A subtle spark of attraction ignites between them. Back in the present, the young man receives a surprising message. His estranged grandfather has emerged from seclusion. He wonders about the implications of this unexpected development. The woman, intrigued by the news, connects the dots, realizing that the old man mentioned earlier might be the young man's grandfather. She contemplates the significance of this revelation. The woman strides purposefully through the city streets, her movements swift and decisive. A sudden burst of energy erupts from her, a display of her considerable power. She unleashes a powerful energy blast, a fiery wave of destruction that engulfs the area. The scene ends with a dramatic flourish, leaving the audience anticipating the next development. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and grotesque figures. The scene pulsed with raw power, hinting at a battle just concluded. An older woman, her face etched with wisdom and concern, watched the scene unfold from afar. Her expression was one of both pride and apprehension. The woman's hand glowed, the energy flowing into her, a testament to the power she wielded. She was preparing for something. A heart-shaped burst of flame erupted, a symbol of gratitude and farewell. She had completed her task. The young man, still recovering from the ordeal, reflected on the recent events. He had unexpected support. He learned that the older woman was his grandmother, a revelation that brought a mix of surprise and comfort. A young woman with vibrant purple hair reacted with amusement to his naivete. She found his surprise endearing. She explained that everyone taking the exam was required to attend a dinner party, a social obligation. He realized he had been so focused on helping her that he'd forgotten to invite her himself. He felt foolish. She, however, seemed unconcerned, dismissing his blunder with a wave of her hand. The party was inevitable. The two young people walked together, their conversation light and easy. It was a rare opportunity to see her. Her carefree demeanor was striking, a stark contrast to the weight of her responsibilities. She seemed at peace. They soared through the air on a powerful motorcycle, leaving the city behind. Their destination was near. The ride was exhilarating, a shared moment of carefree joy. They were heading towards the party. They urged the motorcycle onward, the destination in sight. The party was imminent. A grand Gothic cathedral loomed before them, the site of the upcoming dinner party. Their journey had ended. The scene opens on a young man with short, dark blue hair, dressed in a light blue hospital gown. He stands before a stern-looking man, who greets him with a formal welcome. The young man replies, confirming he is there with a woman named Miss Xiao. A voice, unseen but clearly amused, comments on the young man's swift progress, noting he's already taking Miss Xiao to dinner. He protests, insisting it's not what it seems. The young man and Miss Xiao, along with another companion, stand before a grand staircase leading into a dimly lit hall. A warning is issued. Shun should watch his back tonight. The camera pans to reveal a lavishly decorated dining hall, filled with elegantly dressed people. The young man and his companion exchange a worried glance. The air is thick with unspoken tension. Back outside, the young man's companion expresses surprise at their current location, never expecting to find themselves on the floating island. The young man remains silent, his expression unreadable. Inside the hall, a group of men with glowing red eyes are revealed. The young man is told that this dinner party is his last chance to improve his rating. The stakes are high. The young man contemplates the potential consequences of violence at the party. He considers the risks, a flicker of determination in his eyes. Two men, dressed in sharp suits, observe the scene from a distance. One of them scoffs at the lack of excitement, recalling their previous encounter with the young man. The young man confronts a shadowy figure, his stance resolute. The tension is palpable. A confrontation is imminent. A new character, Wang Jiuyan, confidently introduces himself as a 4-star rookie from the Wang family, issuing a challenge to Shunyi. The scene is set for a showdown. A young man, bathed in an ethereal light, stood defiant amidst swirling shadows and monstrous figures. The scene pulsed with raw power, hinting at a conflict yet to come. In a grand hall, a man boldly challenged Shunyi to a duel, his words echoing with confidence. A woman with striking purple hair watched the unfolding challenge, her expression unreadable. A swift strike, a blur of motion, and a man found himself caught in the middle of a sudden, dangerous confrontation. She stood firm, her sword at the ready, prepared to defend against any who would dare challenge her. A young man, seemingly unfazed, calmly responded to the challenge, his words hinting at a deeper strategy. A leaderboard displayed the rankings of fighters, highlighting the newcomer's unexpected rise. A flurry of motion, a whirlwind of blows, and a swift victory was declared. Two figures, plotting their next move, decided to target an easier opponent for a guaranteed win. The fight concluded, leaving one opponent defeated and the other victorious. A woman with purple hair smirked, commenting on the previous fight's outcome. A woman in a dark dress appeared, recognizing the young man from the Shun family. She was introduced, her reputation preceding her, as someone known for her arrogance. The woman's words hinted at a deeper connection to the events unfolding. The young man was formally introduced, his sponsorship revealed, adding another layer to the intrigue. A woman revealed a dark secret from the young man's past, hinting at a troubled history. News of Shun Ye's alleged attack on the Song sisters spread like wildfire, painting him as a ruthless villain. The image of a young woman, eyes wide with disbelief, punctuated the shocking headline. He defended himself, claiming to have saved the Song sisters long ago, a memory now lost to time. The past, it seemed, held secrets he no longer possessed. A woman's voice, sharp and accusatory, cut through the air. Her words revealed a family's hardship, a past of neglect and poverty. Xinye's face softened, a blush creeping onto his cheeks. The weight of his forgotten past pressed down on him, a heavy burden of guilt. The narrative shifted to a shadowy figure, a man with piercing eyes, who seemed to know more than he let on. His words hinted at a calculated scheme. He listened intently as a woman offered her gratitude and a proposition. A deal was struck, a lifeline in the face of adversity. The woman's stern gaze lingered, a warning implicit in her silence. Her words, though unspoken, carried the weight of a hidden threat. Shunyi, caught off guard, reacted with surprise and a touch of naivete. The implications of her warning were slowly dawning on him. He negotiated a deal, securing a spot in a prestigious martial arts group. His past, however, continued to cast a long shadow. A request for a picture revealed a troubling truth. He couldn't even remember the woman he'd made a deal with. The shocking diagnosis hung in the air. Shunyi had Alzheimer's. The news spread, adding another layer of complexity to his already troubled life. A title card, showcasing a young man bathed in ethereal light, amidst swirling darkness. The young man, his face etched with confusion, grappled with a recent event. He couldn't recall the details, only the unsettling feeling of having done something wrong. The gravity of the situation pressed down on him. His actions had caused a significant public spectacle, and he was now the subject of intense scrutiny. A woman with striking auburn hair and piercing eyes appeared, her expression a mixture of annoyance and disbelief. She was Song Qingyun's aunt, and she clearly didn't believe his claims of ignorance. He tried to explain, but the young man's attempts at clarification were met with polite but firm dismissal. He didn't know her, he insisted. The weight of recent events bore down on him. A friend's death and the mysterious deaths of thousands at the Maplewood Hotel left him feeling increasingly isolated and vulnerable. A wry smile touched his lips. He wondered who was truly behind the chaos unfolding around him. The young man found himself surrounded by reporters, their questions relentless. His high profile made him a target for their intense interest. He was being questioned about the recent events, and the pressure was mounting. He knew he was in over his head. Meanwhile, Song Qingyun's aunt continued to press the issue, her frustration growing with each passing moment. She was not easily dissuaded. A young woman with purple hair and a regal bearing calmly denied the engagement rumors, her composure unwavering despite the swirling gossip. The investigation was ongoing, but the timing wasn't right to reveal everything yet. A woman with striking pink hair and haunted eyes stared into the abyss, her expression filled with a profound sense of dread. A man with dark hair and intense eyes warned him about the dangers of his actions, cautioning him against further entanglement with the woman. The consequences of his actions were laid bare. He had become an enemy to all the noble houses. He scoffed, his words sharp and dismissive. The rumors, he implied, were the product of a reckless youth, baseless and unworthy of serious consideration. But there was more to it than that. A young woman's future, unknowingly bound by family obligations, hung in the balance. His gaze fell to the polished floor, the implication heavy with unspoken truth. She was engaged. The revelation hung in the air, a silent weight. She stood before him, her purple robes a stark contrast to the ornate surroundings. Her explanation was simple. Entrance exams had kept her from returning home sooner. He reached out, his hand gently resting on her arm. The engagement, he explained, was a well-intentioned arrangement, not a matter of coercion or misunderstanding. He turned, his movements swift and decisive. The question hung in the air. What was he doing there? His voice was firm, his words a blunt reminder of the impending engagement. The young woman's return home was not a matter of choice, but a matter of obligation. They walked, the silence between them thick with unspoken anxieties. Where were they going? The question echoed in the opulent hall. A wave of uncertainty washed over her. Did she even agree to this? The question hung heavy, a chilling uncertainty in the face of an unknown future. News of the engagement spread quickly. The patriarch would soon learn of it, a fact that weighed heavily on the man in the blue robes. His daughter, however, seemed unconcerned, even amused by the prospect of her father's reaction. The whole engagement was, in her view, a good thing. A tense moment unfolded between two figures. One, in blue robes, seemed to be reprimanding the other, whose black dress hinted at defiance. The woman in black, it turned out, had made a decision without consulting her family. Her grandfather and father had not yet agreed to the match. A surge of purple energy erupted from the woman in black, a powerful display of her abilities. The young man with blue hair watched, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. Xiao Mingyu's title had changed. She was now the Sword Saintess. He understood the significance of her commitment. There would be no turning back. The power she wielded was overwhelming. The Sword Saintess's killing intent was palpable. A confrontation loomed. A swift, decisive strike. The blow landed with brutal force. The impact sent shockwaves through the room, shattering the floor and leaving the attacker reeling. He groaned in pain, his body battered and bruised. Blinded by greed, he had underestimated her. The man in the beige suit watched, his face a mask of disapproval. The engagement, arranged without the patriarch's consent, was a grave error. Xiao Mingyu declared her unworthy. The consequences of her actions were swift and severe. The Sword Saintess stood over her fallen opponent, the ornate blade lying discarded in the sand, a crimson stain blooming where the blow had landed. She grasped her own sword, its surface shimmering with faint energy. A look of grim determination settled on her face. With a surge of power, she unleashed a wave of energy, the air crackling with arcane might. The leaderboard updated, reflecting her victory. Two figures watched the display with expressions of both awe and resentment. Xiao Mingyu's name now stood at the top, tied for first place. The implications of this were not lost on those present. One of the observers, a young man with short blue hair, muttered that it wasn't as simple as it seemed. His words hinted at a deeper complexity. She held a small, glowing orb, its light reflecting in her eyes. The equipment, resources, and even willpower all contributed to her ranking. Another observer, a man with dark hair, explained that the sword's acknowledgement gave her authority over the Luo family. The final panel showed a celebratory message, highlighting her underdog story and thanking a supporter, Mr. Qian. A mysterious figure was also shown, their identity unknown. The scene shifted to a grand hall, anticipation hanging heavy in the air. A voice boomed, "Let's get back to the matter at hand." A woman with vibrant purple hair stood before a crowd, her words carrying weight. She revealed truths previously kept hidden, truths that would shake the foundations of their world. Another woman, elegant and imposing in her dark attire, stood amidst a sea of faces. Her gaze was sharp, her expression unyielding as she delivered a damning revelation. The noble families were responsible for countless deaths. The news spread like wildfire. Whispers turned to gasps of disbelief. "What? Has she lost her mind?" one man exclaimed, his face a mask of shock and confusion. The purple-haired woman continued, her voice calm, yet unwavering. She suggested they watch their mouths. She detailed the intricate web of deceit, explaining how a marriage and a carefully orchestrated play had plunged the factions into conflict, using a young woman as a shield. The jealousy and consumed the noble families, leading to the slaughter of innocents. All the videos and documents were presented as evidence. The weight of the accusations hung heavy in the air. A final, damning piece of evidence was revealed. The media frenzy was palpable. Cameras flashed, reporters scrambled for quotes. One reporter, desperate for a story, tried to get an exclusive interview. A woman with fiery red hair, her face contorted in anger, rejected the reporter's advances. The camera, catching the moment, recorded her fiery outburst. Meanwhile, a young man with blue hair found himself the target of scorn. "You're a filthy commoner," someone sneered, highlighting his lack of power, background, and money. He calmly countered, pointing out the inherent advantages enjoyed by the noble families, their access to resources and training from a young age. His gaze hardened. He declared that those who oppress the poor and innocent don't deserve to be called human. A man with gray hair stepped forward, challenging the young man. He identified himself as Zhao Qianjun of the East River Zhao family. He prepared to teach the young man a lesson, his power crackling with energy. The clash was swift and decisive. Zhao Qianjun was defeated, Shun Yi victorious. The scene opens on a tense courtroom. A man, clearly agitated, stares up at a woman with purple hair, her expression unreadable. He accuses her of lacking manners, a bold statement considering the setting. A wave of applause ripples through the room. The woman, seemingly unfazed, accepts the accolades with quiet grace. The implication is clear. She has just won a significant victory. A young man with short, blue hair approaches, his words a challenge. He introduces himself and declares his intent to fight her, seemingly oblivious to the gravity of the situation. He explains his reasoning, a calculated move to improve his standing. His ambition is palpable, even arrogant. A sudden shift in focus. A woman observes the challenger, noticing something others don't. A poisonous snake is coiled around him. She warns others, but her words are met with disbelief. The sheer number of powerful individuals present makes her warning seem unbelievable. The tension hangs heavy in the air. No one dares to act, a silent acknowledgement of the danger. The blue-haired young man, seemingly unperturbed, makes a surprising decision. He forfeits the match. His opponent, a woman with short dark hair, reacts with amusement. She warns him to leave before she engages in her own battle. A formal challenge is issued. The challenger is Shun Yi. Shun Yi, the challenger, is shown. A woman questions his actions, implying he forfeited to avoid a confrontation with a more powerful opponent. Another character scoffs at the challenge, highlighting the perceived disparity in strength between the two fighters. Shun Yi confronts the snake, seemingly unafraid. He reveals that he can see the snake, a fact previously unknown to others. He explains his ability to see the snake, emphasizing his skill and awareness. A group of onlookers reacts with shock and disbelief to Shun Ye's ability to see the invisible threat. The woman who initially warned about the snake confirms Shun Ye's ability, adding another layer of intrigue to the unfolding events. A man with long dark hair and a monocle, his face etched with worry, stared into the distance. He muttered to himself, the gravity of the situation evident in his tone. He had already awakened the arcane eyes. A figure in a dark suit watched, a flicker of surprise in their eyes, as a young man seemingly saw something invisible to them. The unseen thing was referred to as Sable. The suited figure, clearly an expert, planned a coordinated attack with a partner, acknowledging the difficulty of predicting the young man's movements. The young man, however, had already anticipated the attack. His previous success, he mused, was likely due to luck. He prepared for the next strike, confident that this time he would not be so fortunate. The attack came swiftly, a shadowy, serpentine form lunging from the darkness. The young man braced himself. He deflected the blow with surprising skill, the energy of the impact rippling outwards. The serpentine form recoiled, its attack thwarted. A woman watched, her expression unreadable. The young man, using the momentum of the parry, launched a counterattack, a burst of energy erupting from his foot. Observers nearby watched in disbelief, unable to comprehend the young man's seemingly impossible feats. His actions were described as incredible. One of the observers, a woman with purple hair, noted that the young man's ability to see sable was extraordinary, a sign of his awakened arcane eyes. The young man, however, remained focused, unimpressed by the awe of those around him. He considered their reactions arrogant. He continued his assault, the intensity of his movements increasing. The force of his attack was overwhelming, pulling his opponents towards him. He unleashed a final, devastating blow, the dust swirling around him as he finished his opponents. A blur of motion. A young man, clad in simple clothing, spun, deflecting a powerful blow with a practiced ease. His opponent, momentarily stunned, crashed to the ground. Nearby, observers watched, their expressions a mixture of shock and disbelief. One of them, a young man with vibrant blue hair, spoke, his words confirming a significant shift in power. The blue-haired youth's strength had increased dramatically. He underestimated his foe, believing the young man was merely bluffing. With a swift, decisive movement, the young man disarmed his opponent. The defeated opponent, enraged, threatened further violence. The young man, however, remained calm, a subtle smile playing on his lips. He summoned a snake, a magical creature. He called out to his companion, Sable, urging it to attack. The opponent scoffed, revealing the weakness of his position. The young man delivered a powerful blow, his words laced with a hint of playful arrogance. He taunted his opponent, confident in his victory. The defeated man, seething with rage, issued a chilling threat. A surge of power coursed through the young man. His fist glowed with an enhanced, almost ethereal light. He smirked, acknowledging his newfound strength. With a final, devastating blow, the battle concluded. The young man's victory was complete. Two onlookers watched, gleeful, as the young man with awakened arcane eyes beat his opponent to a pulp. Their laughter echoed the brutality of the scene. The beaten man, his face a mask of pain and disbelief, could only groan. He was clearly unprepared for such overwhelming power. His thoughts were a desperate plea for respite. He knew, with chilling certainty, that his life was in imminent danger. The young man's eyes burned with an unnatural light, promising further violence. Terror gripped him. He was being dragged down by this fight, a desperate plea for salvation escaping his lips. Death felt close. Meanwhile, a shadowed figure appeared, their identity hidden, a question mark hanging over their purpose. Who was this mysterious individual? A young man, his face contorted in pain, was being held aloft by another. He cried out for help, his voice strained and desperate. The scene shifted to a woman, her expression grim, contemplating the potential consequences of a young man's death. The weight of the situation was heavy on her. A chilling threat was issued, promising the swift and silent erasure of any evidence. The speaker's cold resolve was palpable. The woman's eyes, filled with a chilling calculation, focused on her next move. Her greatest value now was to ensure the young man's death. The young man's fate was sealed. His only purpose was to be killed by Shunyi. A cruel twist of fate played out as the young man's supposed attacker laughed, revealing the charade. He revealed the truth. This was a calculated maneuver, a necessary sacrifice to eliminate troublesome families. The young man's allies had abandoned him, leaving him vulnerable to his enemies. A swift, powerful attack was launched, a flurry of blue energy erupting from the young man's hands. Despite the intensity of the fight, a proctor from G. Allen Academy intervened, deeming the fight brilliant. The young man, exhausted but alive, received medicine to heal his wounds, preparing for the next phase of the exam. The time had come for the final evaluations and rewards to be distributed. The final evaluation began, with the Tarot Tower's judgment hanging in the balance. Having acquired a divine artifact, the young man was granted the power of team leader, enhancing his collaborative abilities. The rules of the upcoming examination were laid out before them, a stark reminder of the power imbalances at play. A young man, seemingly unfazed, reviewed the details on a glowing screen, his expression betraying nothing of his inner thoughts. Another rule appeared, this one grim and visceral. Death was not the end, but a transition to becoming sustenance for others. All participants received a kindled flame, a tool that would illuminate their surroundings throughout the trial. The young man's face fell. His flame had been stolen, a shocking development before the examination even began. He was informed that the thief possessed the exploiter ability, a power that allowed them to steal the flames of others. A sinister laugh echoed through the hall, the voice belonging to one of the antagonists, confident in their advantage. The antagonist issued a chilling threat, promising the young man and his loved ones a gruesome fate. Undeterred, the young man resolved to face his destiny, his resolve hardening despite the dire circumstances. He apologized to his companions for revealing the true nature of the noble families so soon. The young man acknowledged the disparity in resources between his group and the antagonists, but his resolve remained unshaken. With only 10 seconds until the start of the examination, he prepared for teleportation, his final evaluation looming. He vowed to press on, even alone, refusing to yield until the very end. The others stood firm beside him, their resolve mirroring his own. One of them pledged their unwavering support, ready to follow the young man's lead. The examination had begun.